Yeah, so thank you so much for inviting me. I am Delegate Jennifer Carroll Foy, and I represent Prince William and Stafford in the Virginia House of Delegates. However, I want to make very clear that I am born and bred, raised in Petersburg, Virginia. Went to AP Hill Elementary School, Peabody, Vernon John, and Petersburg High School. So product of Crimson Wave, and I'm a proud product of Petersburg. And so, I also wanted to introduce myself and say hi to everyone on City Council. I remember coming to many City Council meetings and advocating for what's important to us in our community. I want to thank you all for your service and for everything that you're doing to take on the challenges for Petersburg and Virginians everywhere. So just wanted to introduce myself and let everyone know that I am also running for governor here in Virginia. And we are on the cusp of electing the first Black woman governor in the history of our country. And for her to be a Petersburg product, I think it says volumes. Because when you come from Petersburg, it says a lot about who you are, not just where you're from. That you have grit and resilience and resourcefulness, and that you're from a community who believes in community. And I think that's really important. But just wanted to share some of the things that I've been able to get accomplished and that I'm really proud of that help support our community and uplift our community. One of the things that I've been fighting very vehemently for has been criminal justice reform. And so as the first public defender ever elected to the Virginia General Assembly, is something that's very personal to me. I represent people who are 125% or more below the poverty line, people who suffer from mental illness and substance abuse, and children. And I actually interned at the Petersburg Public Defender's Office, as well as the Petersburg Commonwealth Attorney's Office. So I'm very familiar with the criminal justice system in Petersburg. And so passing laws and bills such as ending the practice of suspending driver's licenses for failure to pay costs and fees. That was a bill that I put in. Increasing the grand larceny threshold, because I had so many young kids who would take a cell phone and I had to fight for them from being convicted felons for the rest of their lives. And so increasing that grand larceny threshold to $1,000 is a bill that I put in and bill that I fought for. And we were able to get that passed in the General Assembly, which is important. But we still have a ways to go. I still have cash bail reform that I want done because we have a two-tier criminal justice system here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, where if you're wealthy enough to pay, you can buy yourself out of prison. But if you're too poor to pay for your freedom, you sit in jail for weeks and months at a time. And so we shouldn't profit off of justice. And that's what we do here. And so ending that practice is something that's extremely important. It should be about a person's ability to come to court or willingness to come to court and whether they are a danger to themselves or the community, and not about what's in their paycheck or the zip code they live in. So passing real substantive cash bail reform is important. And also, for the last 3 years, I have championed and will work diligently to get past legalization of marijuana, because as a brown and Black person, you are 4 times more likely to be stopped, charged, and convicted for simple possession of marijuana, even though our possession and usage rates are almost identical to our white counterparts. And that's a problem. And these two issues have predominantly contributed the most to mass incarceration in Virginia. So if we can reform our cash bail system, if we can legalize marijuana, those will go so far towards really affecting criminal justice reform and righting a lot of the wrongs. And when you talk about real equity, that's what you're talking about. So those are just two of the things that I'm still fighting for and that would make a huge difference in those changes that I'm trying to spearhead. Also, economic development is extremely important for a community like Petersburg. We have saw our jobs leave, and it's about getting them back, right? And what that looks like may change, but we don't only need the data centers and supply centers. We want people to bring headquarters to Petersburg. We want people to be able to purchase and buy homes and pay property taxes and contribute to our community in a real way. And so attracting those businesses is something that I'm working diligently on. So working with Virginia Economic Development Partnership, Petersburg is an opportunity zone. So there are so many incentives for businesses to come and move to Petersburg. And that's what I'm excited to work with Mayor Perm and the entire city council board to do and to get done, because that's what's needed. We need diverse, high-paying jobs in every corner of our city. And that is what's going to really help make a difference, because economic justice matters. Like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, it doesn't matter if you have a seat at the lunch counter if you can't afford what's on the menu. So that's what this is really about. And so bringing those high-paying jobs is top priority. And I can guarantee you that your city council and your mayor is working very diligently to make that happen. Some of the other things that directly impact our community that I've been working on is the bill to directly address what's happening to our most vulnerable Virginians. So Chief Co-Patroning the Crown Act, a bill that ends hair discrimination. So no longer in Virginia can you be fired for what naturally grows out of your scalp. Hair discrimination will not be tolerated. And there was a survey done that said 80% of Black men and women alter their hair for fear of retribution, such as being fired. Well, we've addressed that. It was my bill to reduce the Black maternal mortality rate, that Black women are 4 times more likely to die during childbirth and postpartum just because of how we naturally appear in the world. So eliminating implicit bias and making doulas covered by Medicaid so Brown and Black women can get the culturally competent care that they need and deserve is what I'm about, and the bill that I have passed, and we're going to be successful in that. Also making breast milk covered by Medicaid, so our preterm and low weight babies can get the food and nutrients they need. Passing a bill to end pregnancy discrimination. So if a woman doesn't want to pump breast milk in a bathroom, she doesn't have to. If she needs to take a little longer break because she's 8 months pregnant, you can't fire her for that in and of itself. And so that's the bill that was very personal to me, because in 2017, I ran for delegate and won my race while pregnant with twins. So I know what pregnancy discrimination looks like, and it was my goal to eradicate it throughout Virginia, and that's exactly what we're able to get done. When you talk about ending Black girls' school push-out, that was another one of my bills that I was able to champion and get passed, because I heard the stories of little brown and Black girls and boys in Portsmouth, in Petersburg, in Richmond, who were told, take out your braids, your locks, take off your head wraps. And if you don't, you can't return to school. And we do not want to create a culture where our young children of color feel harassed and embarrassed and ostracized for who they are and their culture. So what my bill does is says that no dress code in Virginia can prohibit locks, braids, or head wraps or other religious significant headgear such as hijabs. And so that's what it means to do the work. Also diversifying the teacher workforce. We have a serious shortage of teachers, especially teachers of color. So I passed a bill along with the Virginia Education Association in partnership to create a separate assessment besides the praxis for teachers to be able to take so they can pass, so they can be licensed to teach in our public schools. So all of these things are things that directly impact our communities, people where we come from, the children who are being negatively impacted by these bills. And I am confident, and I want to assure everyone that I will continue to do the work. Some of the other bills is a bill I passed to expand broadband in rural areas and suburban areas who don't have access, because ending the digital divide and having access to the internet is very important. And also related to COVID-19, the eviction moratorium is something I supported, and utility bill forgiveness, because we're all struggling right now during COVID-19 to pay the bills. Many people have received their last paycheck and don't know when the next one is coming. So I say all of that to say this: I am all in. If nothing else, Petersburg has taught me how to fight and how to work hard for my community, how to stand up for the challenges that we face, how to never back down from a fight, and how to never take no for an answer. And I am all in running for governor, the same way I was running for delegate. I was able to pass more legislation in my time as delegate than most legislators who have been in the General Assembly for over 2 decades. And now it's time for our voices to be heard. Now it's time for change, because change cannot wait. And that's why these upcoming elections are so important in 2021. So I am excited to, be talking to my people in my community. I'm excited for this new endeavor. And, I'm excited to always have stood up for all of you. And the question is, in 2021, in June of 2021, will you stand with me? So I just want to thank you so much for the time to introduce myself, the policies we've been fighting for, and to say hi to everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Foy, and we look forward to seeing you march to victory next year in the governor's race, and wish you well. So Delegate Foy comes to Petersburg on a regular, and her parents still live here, so you will see her from time to time on the journey. So we wish you the best, and we're super proud of you, and keep on keeping on. I have a Councilwoman Annette Smith-Lee.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hey.
Your dad and I grew up in Cool Spring together. That's right. And he played for the mighty Crimson Wave basketball team. Yes. One of the best that they had, Earl Curl.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We grew up together. He on Talley Avenue and I'm on Mitchell Court. And we used to go down to the schoolyard every Sunday and play basketball. They had the old side and the new side. I'm very proud of you, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I see Mr. Cuthbert on here. I don't know if Mr. Cuthbert remember me, but I worked at the YMCA in Petersburg for years in the fitness center. So I would see you every day for years. It's good to see your face, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. I was there this morning, and
you were there every morning. You were there every morning. So
you know my habits.
I sure do. Good to see so many familiar faces.
All right. Again, thank you so much, and we look forward to being on this journey with you. So
thank you. Thank
you, sir. Come on back any soon, and we're super proud of you, and keep up the good work. Okay.
Yes,
okay?
sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we'll move on to item 9B, City Manager's Report. Ms. Benavides.
Mayor and Council, just to give you a brief update, our Customer Service Center is up and running. We are very excited to have the individuals who are on site now and working on answering calls. Just to give you an idea of how big, between 100 to 250 calls per day. And right now we have 4 individuals who are answering these calls. Calls average increase the time when bills are mailed and when they're received, and throughout the day they are ongoing. The call inquiries include understanding how your property bill reads, balance questions, DMV stop removals, and address changes. Customer service reps, CRSs, are equipped to answer and assist individuals with inquiries, and if it's required to be elevated, they will refer these calls to the Billing and Collections Office. Right now, we are just focusing on calls and familiarization. Our goal is eventually we may end up expanding their responsibility, but that is the main focus at this time. Next item is risk management. As you are aware, we have a moved risk management as a function underneath the HR department. But Twan Bridges has been the lead for a couple of years now and is doing an excellent job in this process. What Mr. Bridges has done in 2020, our annual workman's compensation, we have received a performance rating of a 1.5, and it has been reduced from a 1.50 to a 1.05. This has resulted in a cost savings to the city of $40,000 from the risk management pool. And I'd like to applaud Mr. Bridges for his work and his effort. He also was part of the team that led the healthcare bid, which resulted in a 10% reduction there, and we hope to see him to continue his good work. In public utilities, including streets, the leaf collection program is underway. The annual fall vacuuming is continuing on schedule. The city will be providing 1 round of vacuuming to each ward. The full schedule is available on our website at petersburg.gov, and questions can be directed to the Streets Division at 804-733-2415. Another big project that's very important to everyone is our LED conversion. Plans to start phase 1 have been initiated and a work order has been created. The map required and the letter request have been sent to Dominion to show where the maps are. This is going to change the lighting, but it's also cost effective and creates increased lighting throughout our community. Dominion has asked for extra information on the lighting and the pole numbers, and so we're collecting that information right now. The project is to take place, is to take about a year with about 100 light conversions per phase of the conversion. Another project underway is, is our park and ride structure. To date, the city has spent a total of $373,000 of it. This is a smart scale project that is 100% state funded and being led by our Public Works Department under the guidance of Mr. Lyons. And this is a project to have a park and ride structure on the site. As you can see, the demolition has taken place. The engineering from Dominion has been developed, and initial concept design and cost estimates to relocate power lines are underway, as well as the right-of-way. The project is still on schedule. Andrew Street Bridge project, the scope of the RFP. The RFP was on December 7th with a closing date of January 25th for the additional work. It looks like the city has seeking proposals to create a vibrant linkage to the connection between this. And so just as an update, you should have received a copy of that via mail for that. The final thing that I think is pretty important to all of us, as we've been dealing with the CARES funding and CARES Act, one notification that we did receive from Mr. Lane today via email is that they have extended the deadline for expending funds until January 21st. But we are well under our way in expediting and utilizing those funds. We also have been awarded and applied for the COVID Municipal Utility Relief Program to assist customers who received. I received a letter on December 7th from Eric Johnston with the Department of Virginia Housing and Community Development, stating that on behalf of the mayor, it is a great pleasure to inform you that the city of Petersburg has been awarded federal Corona Aid Relief Economic Security Act funds pursuant to the appropriation of $382,494 to assist municipal utility customer relief for their eligible customers for the city of Petersburg. I did have a meeting with the city managers yesterday to talk about this. A number of cities did not apply. I believe that Emporia and Sussex may have applied, or Sussex have applied, but there are some criteria in this that we'll have to review. The reality for us is that we've got to make sure that it's something we can sustain. I've been working with Ms. Tyus in Community Affairs on, if this is granted to us, the potential rollout of these funds. That concludes my report. Are there any, hold on a second. Are there any other questions? From council.
All right, any questions from members of council on the city manager's report? Yes, Councilwoman Wilson Smith.
Take your mute off.
I'm trying. Can you hear me now?
Okay, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, just as a follow-up, thank you for applying for the utility grant. That was one of the things that I had asked about at the last meeting and sent to you, so I'm grateful that you did that. I had also asked about the report in the Virginia Municipal League magazine where they had listed Mr. Clayhammer as the Economic Development Manager, and you were going to follow up on that. So I wonder, where are we? Are they going to make their correction? Are we just leaving this alone? What's what with it? And another concern from the last meeting that I attended was in reference to Petersburg East. You're going to follow through with the police department to see exactly what we could do, reference the crime there, the majority of shootings that was taking place there. So were you able to follow through on any of those things?
Yes. So what happened with Mr. Clay Hamner is because it was an economic development based article, they put that title in there. They're aware that that is not his title. And even though he's working under that department for the city, it is the title, I think, as a program manager that Reggie had. And so I think he might have been hired under that title. He is writing several articles as we've been focusing on getting the news out based on the economic development projects we've been doing, but he is a provisional employee of the city. There is a director and then there are manager positions. And so there's a difference between the two. And so I believe that is what he was brought in under the provisional basis to work on this project.
Okay. And Petersburg East?
Mr. Lyons has an answer to that.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, I know that under Chief Christian, along with Mr. Reed and others, there's an internal task force that is scheduled to go out and do a full view of the property. I hope to get a notification out to you all about what we are planning to do and who's involved with the task force. If all goes well, I will have that information to each of you no later than noon tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there any other questions on the city manager's report for members of council? All right. Seeing no other hands, we'll move on to item C, the COVID-19 update. Ms. Tyus.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Madam City Manager. In front of you, you can switch back one, Garrett. Perfect. Just as with previous meetings, I share with you the Crater Health District ESF 8 report. And if you'll recall, looking back to probably the last couple of reports that I've shared with you, I call your attention to the fact that the city of Petersburg has not had any more fatalities recently associated with COVID-19. As always, the number of positive cases is going to continue to go up. But we are really grateful that we are not experiencing extremely heavy death rates in the city of Petersburg. And you can go to the next report, Garrett. And whereas the summary of, and I want to continue to call our attention to the fact that whereas the city of Petersburg has had 1,090 actual cases, only 90 of those cases are currently active to date. And that means that 967 of those cases have been cleared to this point. So that too is a good sign, and it says that our potential sick is not as heavy as the 1,000 positive cases that we have seen. So I'll continue to bring these cases, this information to you so that you can see, so that everybody will know when we experience something that represents an even higher spike than we've had. So we're in a steady place right now, even though our positive numbers, our positive cases continue to go up. Next report. We, excuse me. We are extremely excited to finally to be able to share with you that the Petersburg 2020 Holiday Meals Initiative, which we call Feed the Need, A Taste of Petersburg. Next part of the slide. For the Thanksgiving holidays, we served 9,000 hot meals to the residents of the city of Petersburg. We started off with a number projected that was much lower than that, but by the time we accommodated all of our online and our stationary sites over that 4 days, using 8 restaurants across the city who took this project very, very seriously. We were able to, in a very COVIDly sensitive manner, and they tell me I made up a word when I created that, when I say that, but those meals were delivered in 30 stationary sites, which means the residents in those sites did not have to leave their home facilities to receive those meals. We had a drive-up site hosted by the sheriff's office where we served over 400 meals. And then we had a very robust door-to-door delivery. That was the total for the Thanksgiving holiday. For the Christmas holiday, we've now rounded that number off to a plan to serve 10,000 meals. And the dates of service for those meals is December 22nd and 23rd. That is the Tuesday and the Wednesday before Christmas Eve, and the 29th and the 30th, which is also the Tuesday and the Wednesday before New Year's Eve. The team continues to feel that it's important to for us to serve meals to our residents on in addition to what they might receive for the holiday. So we look forward to continuing that into the next phase. On Friday of this week, we will go live with the applications, just as we did for Thanksgiving for the 10,000 meals. Because the program was so successful, and because we're increasing to 10,000, which is not a significant number over Thanksgiving, we're going to encourage everybody that as soon as this goes live, that you should go online and reserve your meal, because we'll have to cut it off when we reach the capacity of this feeding program. So it was, we learned a lot in the first round, and I want to share with you a video collage of the Thanksgiving feeding initiative that we engaged in. And at the conclusion of that will conclude my report. Here we can do the video.
I don't seem to have the video unless it's somewhere else.
Came from Tammy. Okay. All right. We will share the video with you prior to getting off this call, if we could put our hands on it.
Darnetta, while he's pulling up the video, just to give you a brief update on the CARES Act funding, which was the COVID-19 funding. We have, I have to say, done some remarkable things. Each of you will receive a update. I did mention that we have received more time, but we were able to provide almost $500,000 in assistance to Petersburg Public Schools. Hello? Okay, to assist with their efforts, and as far as the homeschooling, as well as some of the other things in which they've needed. We also, just so you'll know, we're able to support, from a housing standpoint, our veteran community that are struggling due to COVID with funding with housing support. Each of you will receive an update at the first meeting in January. We will give you an update on our expenses as far as what all has been included. We have been a stickler for sticking to the guidelines, and as Ms. Tyus has talked about, we've done 2 rounds of grants and things like that. But each of you all will receive an update. For the community who's interested in what's happening, we will also put this update online, and it'll be available for everyone to understand the things that the city has been able to do for the community with our CARES funding. Any luck, Garrett?
No, ma'am, I don't seem to have received that.
Okay.
Kimmy, if you have it in yours, if you could forward it to Garrett. Kimmy, if you have it, because I thought I forwarded it to both of you. Okay. If we can do it, madam, I would love to come back to it because it's pretty inspiring. That concludes my report.
Mayor, if we could come back to it after we do the presentation.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. We'll circle back by. Then, in the meantime, thank you, Ms. Tyus, for all you do in our COVID-19 response. I mean, it's been fabulous. I know to be able to feed 9,000 people for Thanksgiving was extraordinary, and look forward to feeding even more for Christmas.
And I'm sorry. I'd be remiss if I didn't add one more thing. Thank you, Council Member Smith Lee, for the thought. The city of Petersburg, whereas we cannot have a Christmas parade, we are going to be hosting a drive-through light up Petersburg initiative, where we're online right now. There's an application for residents who decorate their homes, who would like to have their homes to appear on the path that we take for our Christmas light parade. The parade itself is going to be on Saturday, Saturday, December, is it the 18th? So whatever that Saturday is, if somebody could check that while I'm doing this, because mine is not coming up. But I'm sorry.
It's the 19th.
Okay, so Saturday the 19th, we will pick a point to start in the neighborhood, to driving by the homes where residents say, we would like to show off our home decorations with you. And it will culminate in downtown Petersburg, where we will have a series of characters and blow up Christmas decorations as a part of this drive-through. So different than we've done in the past, but gonna try a drive-through Light Up Petersburg festival that we hope that everybody who's joining us on this call will take part in identifying houses for us to drive by, and will actually join us in this initiative. So we are excited about that. And that really does conclude my report.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you, Ms. Tyus. Great job as always. Next, we'll move on to item 9D, presentation on proposed terms for the entranceway improvements in Park on Washington and Jefferson Street. At this time, Garrett, if you can unmute and get Mr. Richard Taylor up from discussing this concept of having a real entryway park coming into the city, which would be used as a welcome center and also provide information on things we have going on.
Is he listed as just Richard?
Yeah, I believe he's listed as just Richard.
So, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon,
Mr. Mayor.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to see Ms. Smith and Howard there, Mr. Myers. I know they've been going under a little bit of stress here with COVID and pneumonia. I'm a little hoarse myself, but I'm glad to see everybody back. Before I start the presentation, I want to congratulate Ms. Tyus on that unbelievable job that she's done in the city down with that feeding program. I was really impressed with it, and I'd like to let her know that I'll volunteer to help serve those meals when she does it at Christmas time. But 2 months ago, I wouldn't be here talking to you because the mayor hadn't called me yet and said he needed some help. And I knew I was in trouble when I volunteered, but that's okay. I've lived here for 77 years, and I'll tell you what, every day I wake up, I feel blessed that I've been able to grow up in Petersburg. I love my city. This project is a continuation, really, of a project that was started years ago by the Petersburg Foundation to improve the appearance of the entranceway off of the interstate on Washington Street. And when the mayor called me, he said, you know, he was kind of tired of looking at that nice entranceway sign they have over in Columbia Heights. We need to do something in Petersburg. And it came to me that maybe we ought to try and see if we could do something with that empty lot where the VEC building was. And you have a plan that we put together. My cohort in this is Mr. Packer, Michael Packer, and he's sitting here with me. I live at 828 West Tuckahoe Street, just to make sure you guys know that I'm a resident of Petersburg. And he and I have been working really hard, and other people have been meeting with the city attorney and the mayor and Councilman Cuthbert to try to put together a plan that I think all of us could be proud of. And it would really help, I think, you know, what they say, you only get one chance at a first impression. And I think this would add to that very thing, and that is we would beautify this corner here, put it into an easement so that we could make a park out of it. The Soil and Water Conservation District has agreed to hold the easement on it as a conservation easement. And what we would do is, it's the green area that says park on your map. We would work with the Petersburg Foundation. FOLAR is going to be the lead organization to raise the funds for it. And we've already been successful in getting a good start on that and getting good prices from contractors and suppliers for fencing and gravel and all. We plan to put there's a little presentation. One of the slides shows the basic design of what we are intending to do and to make it into green space. And it's really kind of funny that just recently I attended a session on the urban tree canopy. And one of the things that they're doing to try and help keep the river clean and the Chesapeake Bay clean is to encourage more plantings within the urban areas to get rid of some of the hot spots that are there now. So that's pretty much what we're trying to do. And we are asking the city to help us by allowing us to create a conservation easement on this site. One of the things that came to mind, if you look down a little bit further, you'll see that Welcome to Petersburg sign. Go down a little bit more and then come back to that one. This right here is if you've seen that around the city, it is really attractive, I think, as a welcome post that people see when they come into the city. The metal posts there are actually historic. They were part of the structure. If you go back to that gas works, just go back, there you go, right there. That, I don't know how many of y'all remember that. I'm sure Miss Benavides does not, because she wasn't here then, but when I was much, much younger, the gas company had a storage tank that would go up and expand as they put gas into it, and it would contract as we used the gas. And if some of you know the history of it, the gas plant converted coal into gas, which then the city used to light the street lights. So it's kind of interesting. Some of this structure is still available. The city actually owns it. And we have found it, and just this week we measured it, and we've got enough to make the sign. That would be the welcoming sign on the corner of that property. And we think with that historic structure, I've actually talked to the gas company representative, and they would like to help us with this project. And there would be some other information that would be located at the corner that would direct people to historic sites and to City Hall and other interesting places within the city. I know that Ms. Benavides would like to show that video, and I'd like to see it myself. So if you have any questions about it, I'll be glad to. You want to scroll down to what? If you'll scroll down to the proposed sign that we want to put up right there, there it is. With that nice fencing all around the lot and all, I think it would be a really nice first impression that we can give people coming into Petersburg who want to visit us and go to Old Town area. We'd have directional signs to that, as well as FOLAR looks at it as the gateway to the Appomattox River, to our project. So there'll be directional signs to Pocahontas as well as to Ferndale and the other points of interest along the river. So that's my story. And Mr. Mayor, I hope I've done what you've asked me to do.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you and Mr. Packard for both of your hard work on this and drawing up the diagrams and everything. I just want to also add that all of this, the Welcome to Petersburg, all of the hardware is actually located right behind city-owned property. And so we have all of these posts from the ironworks that we still own that's not being utilized. So it's a way to definitely create a beautiful gateway that has the history of Petersburg and also provide that much needed green space, which is an added attraction to the amount of people that are renovating homes and helping to revitalize that area there on Jefferson Street. So at this time, I entertain any questions from members of council.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, Councilman Hill.
I think it's a great idea that we do something of this magnitude. I can remember, I think it was Councilwoman Wilson Smith was saying something about maybe, doing signs up and down 95, just trying to promote our city. But I think this will kind of serve also along with that to help our city in its beautification, along with the just holding ourselves. And I believe those little round circle things that they have, I guess they will have different organizations and clubs and things like that on there. I think that's what I saw or what I'm looking at in my packet. So I think that'd be a good thing to have, just to promote the city and let people know where to go and things of that nature. So and then we already have most of the signage anyway. So I think it's a great idea.
Yes, and this fact is FOLAR is leading this project along with HPF, and it doesn't have a cost to the city to create this park. They're taking this on, and we're so grateful. But we really would like to get a blessing from council in moving forward with the next phase of this project. If in most cities you go to, whether you're in Hopewell, whether you're in Colonial Heights, everyone has an actual welcome gateway type of sign that shows where you're and gives emblems of the service organizations you have, whether it's from Rotary to Kiwanis to Triad, all those things that definitely make our community vibrant. At this time, a question for Councilwoman Wilson Smith.
Yes, excellent idea, Mr. Taylor. Excellent idea. My question is for us, the proposed park area, is that land that the city owns now, or is it already within? It is land the city owns?
Yes, ma'am.
Dan was shaking his head. Yeah, okay, so then
yes,
our motion is to grant this property to the organization. Is that how we're doing this?
Mr. Mayor, do you want me to answer that?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Ms. Smith, I'm sorry I couldn't talk to you last night, but yes, the city will continue to own the property. The Soil and Water Conservation District will hold the easement, the conservation easement on it.
Okay.
So it still remains city property.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
So today there's not any action in front of council other than to express council's interest in moving this forward. If you do, then you will in the future have an MOU that outlines the plans for who is doing what. Mr. Packer has already sent me a draft of that, and I believe I've responded to him on that. And you'll also receive an ordinance. The ordinance is what will need to be adopted to convey the property. But as Mr. Taylor has indicated, all we're conveying is an easement to allow them to construct it. And it's not going to require a franchise because we're conveying it to another governmental entity. So all we're really looking for today is council expressing an interest in moving forward. It sounds like so far most of the members sound like they're interested in this.
Yes.
And I'll entertain a motion for council to move forward if council will. Councilwoman.
Me, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the proposed project.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Wilson Smith. Councilman Hill.
I second that motion.
All right. And Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hart. Is he still on?
Yes, he's on. I heard he just said aye, but his mic must be muted.
Okay.
Okay.
Mayor Perm.
Aye. All right. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Packer. Great job. So we will work with our administration to get forward on the next steps of the MOU.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I appreciate that, and I look forward to not having to retire again. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next, Garrett, did the video ever come up from Ms. Tyer's presentation?
No, sir, it did not.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll move on then to the consent agenda to include minutes of the previous meetings. Item 10, which is 10A, a request to schedule a public hearing in consideration of an ordinance authorizing the execution and recordation of a deed of vacation and quick claim of property at 37 Slagle Avenue, parcel ID 014010001, related to a 15-inch sewer easement on the property. Item 10B, request for City Council to schedule a public hearing on January 5th, 2021 regarding a proposal to purchase and develop 703 Hinton Street, and consideration of an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute a purchase agreement toward the sale of the city-owned property. Item C, consideration to approve the supplemental appropriation amount of $7,397,181 for Petersburg Public Schools for the current fiscal year, first reading. Item 10D, consideration to appropriate the balance of urban highway from set-aside funds in the amount of $2,601,761.50 from the Department of Transportation, first reading. Item 10E, consideration for City Council to approve the CARES Act of 2020 funding for the Petersburg Registrar's Office in the amount of $60,665, first reading. Item 10F, consideration appropriation of an additional $1,339 received from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality for the City of Petersburg litter grant for prevention and recycling program activities for the period July 1st, 2020 and June 30th, 2021, first reading. Item 10G, ABC application for Strivers Road, Petersburg, LLC. Item 10H, special regular city council meeting minutes of May 19, 2020, October 20th, 2020, special closed session city council meeting minutes of November 10th, 2020, special regular city council meeting minutes of November 10th, 2020, and special regular city council meeting minutes of November 17th, 2020. Those are the items of the consent agenda. And Councilman Hill.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I move that we approve the consent agenda as stated by our mayor.
All right. Vice Mayor Hart.
Second.
Second, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I've got my hand up.
Okay. Councilman Cuthbert.
I have some questions about 10C, 10G, and 10H. Is now the appropriate time to ask those questions, or shall we move these to items removed from the consent agenda?
Councilman Cuthbert, we can move those items to item 14, items removed from the consent agenda for further consideration.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
All right. Yes.
I'd
Councilman
like
Myers.
I'd like to agree with Mr. Cuthbert. I have some questions about, I think it is 10C.
Okay.
I can't seem to find it in my packet real quick, but I'll wait till that time to ask my questions.
All right. So if everyone can make note, we will move items 10C, 10G, and Councilman Cuthbert,
And H also.
and H, G and H, C, G, and H. All right, C, G, and H has been moved to the item 14. All right. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Hill,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hart,
Aye.
Mayor Perm.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
Next, we move on to item 11, official public hearings. Item A, a public hearing, December 8th, 2020, regarding a proposal to purchase and develop 115 Harrison Street and consideration of an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute a purchase agreement toward the sale of city-owned property. And that is with Ms.
Ms. Evco and Mr. Manziel.
Shit.
We're unmuting them and pulling them up now.
Okay.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Mayor and council members. This is Ms. Evco. Hope you are doing well today. Before you is an opportunity that we received, contacted by Mr. Davis, who I believe is on the phone as well, who is interested in establishing at 115 Harrison Street a commercial operation. He has provided the Department of Economic Development information on his proposal, which I believe you have in front of you in the packet, as well as a data sheet that includes whether it is conforming to the current zoning, and as well as his finances in order to perform this operation. You can see that from the data sheet provided in your packet, the adjustment for real estate taxes and his operation and what he is planning to do. It's an opportunity to bring life to a building that has been dormant for some time and in that area. And if Mr. Davis would like to speak, or Mr. Manziel, we're happy to provide additional information and questions.
Okay. All right, this is a public hearing. So at this time, we'll open the floor for the public hearing, then come back to questions from members of council. We have a hand up of Mr. Marcus Omar Squires.
Hi, Marcus Omar Squires, 1701 Monticello Street here in Petersburg, Virginia. $1,600 seems like a rather low price. Has the city looked at marketing this property? I'm sure you could get more than $1,600 for this particular piece of property, especially with the city's future plans at developing the Halifax Triangle area. Thank you.
Garrett, do you see any other hands?
I do not, Mayor.
All right. Again, this is the public hearing on the proposal to purchase and develop 115 Harrison Street. If you would like to comment, you can raise your hand in the Zoom and be recognized. All right, seeing no other hands, this public comment period is closed. Next, we have questions from members of council. Councilwoman Wilson Smith.
Thank you. Couple of questions, please. Why are we selling it for only $1,600? Assessed value is $20,700. So why are we only selling it for $1,600?
All right, Ms. Evco, you'd like to comment on that?
Mayor, as we're waiting for Ms. Evco.
Mayor, while Ms. Evco is waiting on, Madam Manager, while Ms. Evco is on the project, first of all, as you know, this is a piece of property that is a little bit in distress. One of the things that the staff has done as a part of this process, they've checked all the due diligence. In spite of it, is based on the assessed value, as well as the fact that the purchaser is planning to invest about $27,000 of resources to bring the building up to snuff in this process. One of the things that we hope with small businesses as we are moving through this process, we hope that they find the opportunity to be successful in this process. And we think this is an investment of a building that is potentially going into this further distress. The second piece of it is, as a part of our process, we have in all of our economic development a clawback procedure that basically says if they do not finish out the process or to make the necessary improvements, we then, the city, would have the opportunity to reclaim the property back. If with the $27,000 of investment into the building, at an absolute minimum, if we even had to claw back this building with the $27,000 of improvement, it would be in better shape than it is in right now. So a part of that is based on the assessed valuation. A part of it is based on staff talking to the gentleman, also going through all of the financials. So we feel like based on the offer for this property, this is where we are at this time.
The next question has to do with item 6 on the real estate purchase agreement. And it states if purchaser determines that the project is not feasible during the due diligence period, so it raises the question of, has the purchaser actually been inside of the building to make any predeterminations? Does he know what it looks like? Is he aware of everything? I'm sorry. Is he aware of everything that is going on with this purchase?
Yes, as far as I know, Mr. Williams and others have been working with staff in terms of developing the language for a development agreement that helps to crystallize all of what happens in the process if the project does not move forward.
And Ms. Smith, Councilwoman,
Yes.
to tie into this, we usually do a due diligence because some things you can see from a cosmetic. It's kind of like when you purchase a home, when you have your home inspector to come in. It's just to make sure that they can do an in-depth dive versus a peripheral view to make sure it's something that they can do. A lot of times we think with a project that it's going to be simple, but once you bring in your structural and you invest some people into looking at it, it may turn out that it's not feasible, and it gives each person that their clause to get out of it. And so we traditionally have this due diligence period for all projects or all purchases from the city.
So then, to answer the question, he has been inside the building and has seen what it's like and if it actually is feasible to do what he wants to do there.
I know Mr. Davis is on the call here, and I know staff said that he's willing to address any specific questions you may have along those lines.
All right. Clay Mansell has his hand up to address that question. Can you unmute Clay?
Hi, members of council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, sir.
Hi. I just want to address some of the questions here. Mr. Davis has seen the inside of the building, as well as I have, and Ms. Evco. There is a huge hole in the side of the building accompanying the neighboring property, as well as a hole in the ceiling, as well as terrible conditions within the building. So it will require substantial renovations, and that is partially one of the reasons why the offered purchase price we believe is appropriate considering the condition of the building, since it will cost so much to renovate. So the initial purchase price might be low, but what we're looking forward to in the future is once he renovates it and the assessed value increases, the taxable property revenue will generate down the road, as well as some of the job creation as well.
Okay, my last question is, how does this tie in with how does it support our current plans, our comprehensive plan with the city?
So a part of the assessment process, we have looked at the comprehensive land use plan, as well as proposed land use and the zoning, and the proposal complies with all of our pre-existing comprehensive plan use in that area.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. You're welcome.
My question I had too is I agree with Councilman Wilson Smith on it, because we are both aware of that building is set for a tremendous amount of time, and I'm also had the concern about the actual investment, because 27,000 proposed investment seems kind of low for a building. Like you said, it has a hole in the side of it, and pretty sure we're gonna need a roof, windows, doors, a lot of exterior work that I look like would exceed $27,000. Is there a plan in place for some sort of bank financing to cover other expenses that may arise? Because like in any old building, once you get started, it seems to be always a lot more of investment that's necessary to get the building up to par.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As Mr. Lyons mentioned earlier, during the due diligence period, that 120-day due diligence period, that is the opportunity for the prospective purchaser to get inside that building, to look at it a little more closely, get a contractor in there to kind of look at, some of what it's going to, rather than just a projection, what it'll actually cost to get the building up and running. And so if during that due diligence period, the purchaser finds that it is going to cost more, during the development agreement, we can renegotiate a higher total investment, or the prospective purchaser, if they get in there and they see that it's going to cost 2-3 times as much than they've proposed, and they want to back out during that due diligence period, that is their right to say, no, thank you. Or some of that kind of stuff will be renegotiated during the due diligence period once they have an opportunity to get in there and start to kind of look at it much more closely.
Okay. Any follow-up question, Councilwoman Wilson Smith, from that?
No, it just looks like we're doing things that, no, that's all. Thank you.
Okay.
And
Councilman
Mr. Mayor,
Cutler? Yes. Mr. Williams?
yes, just to be clear for council, with all these real estate deals, you get 2 bites at the apple, so to speak. You approve the purchase agreement, which authorizes them to execute the purchase agreement, but typically they still have to come back to council to get you to approve the development agreement. So if there's something about what's being proposed with the development that you don't like, there's still an opportunity for council to say, we're not moving forward. And I just wanted to make sure that was clear. You authorize the execution of the purchase agreement by this action, but typically, including in this action, you're going to have another bite at the apple when this comes back to you to approve the development agreement within that 120-day period. So I didn't want anybody to be mistaken about that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Councilman Cover?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and Council, there's nothing I would rather see than a vibrant Halifax Triangle once again. And perhaps this could be the opening move in that direction. At the same time, I'm afraid our city administration and our city council has a record of advocating and approving projects that never happen. And often the reason is that the developer just does not have the money to match his dreams. This proposal has all the hallmarks of following that pattern. $27,000 to rehab this property is not realistic in my view. And so I truly am torn. On the one hand, I want to see this project fly. On the other hand, it's not going to happen for $27,000. It's not flying anywhere for $27,000. It's not. So it's not that if council does not approve this, it's not because council has opposed a potentially successful project. Instead, it will be because council has recognized that this project will never be a successful project. Given these different forces that are pulling at me, on the one hand, I want to see the triangle revived. On the other hand, this project with a budget of $27,000 is not going to revive anything. And so I move that council remands this matter to city staff to determine 2 things and then report back to council at our first meeting in February. 1, to determine a realistic cost of making the property eligible
for an occupancy permit for this ice cream and crepes parlor. And two, to determine whether the developer has the financial means to pay this realistic cost.
All right, there's a motion from Councilman Cuthbert. Councilwoman Wilson Smith. Councilwoman Smith, you can
muted.
If you can unmute yourself.
I didn't realize I had a hand there. But can we have discussion on his motion, or do we have to wait for the second?
We're waiting for a second, then we can have discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I want to... Go ahead.
Vice Mayor Hart. Can you unmute yourself?
All right, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I was given a second to Councilman Cuthbert. Yes.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hart. Next, we'll move on to discussion. Councilwoman Wilson Smith.
Yes, I'd just like to ask Mr. Williams if he could reiterate what he said that we're actually voting on. Please.
Yes, ma'am. And it goes right to the heart of perhaps the concerns expressed by Councilman Cuthbert. And that is what you're voting on today is approval of the authorization to execute the purchase agreement. That doesn't sell the property. Within that purchase agreement, there's a provision that says for the next 120 days after they execute that agreement, the prospective purchaser has a right to investigate the property and determine feasibility, but also they have the obligation to bring a development agreement back to City Council. That development agreement will describe the project they're proposing, how much it's going to cost, and it may even describe the finances and their financial wherewithal as Councilman Cuthbert has identified. That document comes back in front of council. If you do not approve that document, the deal's off. If you do approve it, then it becomes a part of the deed and they must complete that project within the time period in the development agreement, or the city takes the property back with the improvements. So that's what you're voting on. Right now, it's very preliminary. You're just authorizing the execution of the purchase agreement, but all that stuff is in that purchase agreement.
Sure.
Okay. Councilman Wilson Smith.
So with that clearer understanding of exactly what it is we are voting on, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we approve the authorization, the purchase agreement towards the Cello city-owned property.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second from Councilman Myers. Any discussion on the substitute? Councilman Cuthbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, we have a very sad record of approving projects that never happen. There's no sense in approving them if they're not going to happen. This is serious business, and throwing out a purchase price of $1,600 and throwing out an estimated cost of rehab of $27,000. I feel like we're not dealing with reality. The comment was made by staff that we will go put this building back on the tax rolls, and that was going to make a difference. If you look at page 149, and I want to thank the city clerk for giving us page numbers, because it sure does make it easier to refer back and forth to things. But if you look at the bottom of page 149, you'll see that over 20 years, the total revenue that the city will receive over 20 years is $6,800. So that's not a figure that ought to drive us anywhere. But this project is not going to, it's not realistic at $27,000 to rehab that building. So staff, at some point, and now's not the time, but staff really needs to bring us to vet these projects for their financial feasibility before staff even brings them to us. We all waste a lot of time, a lot of emotion, a lot of talk dealing with projects that can't happen. So I think we ought to get to the kernel of the feasibility of this by remanding it to staff and asking staff to do what, in my view, staff should have done to begin with. And that is determine what's a realistic cost of getting this property to the point where it's going to qualify for an occupancy permit, and then to determine whether the developer has the means, the financial means, to pay that amount. Look at the numbers. What's happening here? $1,600 is the proposed purchase price. The down payment is, the earnest money, whatever one wants to call it, is 10% of that, $160. Okay. If the buyer walked away at the end of the due diligence period, he gets everything back of that 160 except for 10% of it. So he loses $16 and he's tied this property up. All the numbers are off. None of them is realistic. And staff needs to do a better job of vetting these projects before they come to us. My motion, the original motion, asks staff, in effect, gives staff a second chance to determine what those costs are going to be, and then in the context of those costs, to determine whether the developer's got the means to do the job. Otherwise, this is going to be just one more property on our sad, sad list of properties that we've agreed to sell, and then nothing ever happens again. So I appreciate the substitute motion, but I'm going to vote against it. This needs to go back to staff. Staff needs to do more spade work before bringing us projects.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Cutler. Councilman Myers?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I can't see how we can continue to delay the process. This is a process, and to continue to delay these process inhibits our ability to move forward with our economic development of our city. These numbers here that Mr. Cuthbert are referring to, it looks like 1 year, 5 years, and 20 years of value that the city might receive. But then the residual value comes with the retail from this particular facility. It's a commercial facility. It may provide jobs to at some point, and but it is an empty building that has been abandoned for a while, and we have enough of those in our arsenal. And I believe that even taking a chance on any building that we would get some performance or improvement out of is an advantage to the citizens of the city of Petersburg. But continuing to delay a process for an effort that is very unnecessary, I think, is futile to the city of Petersburg for someone to even consider it. And when we look at the amount of money of what, and I'll go back to the past and I'll come back to the present, that where everyone says, oh, you're selling buildings for pennies on the dollar, but then it costs you $200,000 to demolish the building yourself, where you didn't sell a building who had a $50 million investment to put into the building, yet you forwent that. And now the city is stuck with a $199,000 bill, not only once, twice, but 3 times over. And so I say, let's allow the process to move forward. And let's continue to move forward with our economic development of the city of Petersburg. Thank you.
All right. At this time, I just want us to be mindful of the total cost of council from staff can get the total cost of this type of a deal, because even in this offer price of $1,600 is known for us to approve projects like this. Then it goes to closing, and then the closing costs end up being $3,500. So we have to make sure that we factor in all those costs of sales of property to make sure that it is worthwhile and benefits the city of Petersburg and the property owner as well. We got to find that middle ground. So at this time, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Mayor, would you ask the clerk to repeat what the pending motion, the substitute motion is, please?
Sure. Ms. Jackson?
Mm-hmm. The motion is to approve the purchase agreement. That's what Councilwoman Wilson Smith stated.
Okay.
Councilmember Cuthbert?
Right.
No. And just as a clarification, approving the purchase agreement means adopting the ordinance authorizing approving the purchase agreement, correct?
Correct.
Councilmember Cuthbert?
No.
Councilwoman Wilson Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Aye.
Councilwoman Smith Lee?
Aye.
Councilmember Hill?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hart?
Aye.
Mayor Pern?
No.
Motion's passed.
Next, we'll move on to item 11B, a public hearing regarding an amendment to the City of Petersburg Code, Article 4, I-95 Technology Zone, definitions, incentives, and compliance sections. Purpose to amend the city code and better define and clarify existing sections pertaining to the I-95 Technology Zone. Mr. Lyons?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would ask Garrett if he could let Mr. Jeremy Tennant and Mr. Reggie Tabor in on it in case we have to field any specific questions. We got about 13 slides. I'm gonna hit them real quick here. As you just indicated, what we do as a part of this presentation, we can continue on through the presentation, Garrett. Basically, what we started to do here is just outline all of the definitions, and then we also talk about the technology zone incentives, a procedure that we will be following, as well as compliance and confidentiality in this process. As Garrett continues to move on to the presentation, remember, as a part of the technology zone, council initially approved this concept back in July 15, 2003. Went on to amend the project in October 21, 2014. And then ultimately we amended it again in October 6, 2020. The purpose of the technology zone really is to allow and encourage certain classes of high technology business activities with special economic significance to the city to be in an area and to get both for employment and for capital investment. What we traditionally do is offer incentives which were approved by ordinance. These incentives equal to about 100% of what we call machinery and tool taxes paid in a year. Traditionally, technology loan approvals go for 5 years. However, they can be extended up to 10 years. We have now created an application process that helps us to move forward. We have been very, very fortunate as a part of the presentation, hopefully in your packet, that talks about the I-95 technology zone. In the presentation, it shows the boundaries. As I mentioned before, what we are talking about is what we have as existing amendments in definitions and clarifications versus those new definitions in this process. We know as a part of this also, we have developed a flow chart that better helps us to understand the flow of the information internally as it relates to staff working closely with our Commissioner of Revenue, who has played an extraordinary part as a part of this process. As a part of the new amendments as well, we go on and identify what we call a grant administrator that would help to certify that the applications are true to form prior to us moving it on to the Commissioner of Revenue. And it also helps us to clarify how the amounts of credits are determined and the duration of the grant period. Remember, I said before, the technology zone can go for 5 years at a time and can go for 2 terms up to 10 years, as I said before. The other thing of it is, just keep in mind, as I shared earlier, since 2003, we've had a technology zone process in place. And what staff is basically recommending is approval of the amendment of the I-95 technology zone to better define and clarify the sections listed above. I think it's important that we understand that we talk about the technology zone incentives program policy. We talk about the application piece. We talk about the technology zone as it relates to the machinery and tools tax form that is in process. And keep in mind that the technology zone surrounds the I-95 corridor. The one thing that I would leave you with as I summarize this before we entertain questions, at present, we only have one use of the technology zone in place here in Petersburg, and that is for AMPAC, fine chemicals. We did that on March 22nd, 2018 for a 5-year period, which means that expires on March 22nd, 2023. Also keep in mind, as a part of a process, we are working right now to try and attract new development to that area. So there are individuals that are asking for technology zone credits. And there is a likelihood as well that because of the tremendous expansion and things that are taking place with AMPAC, that even AMPAC may come back to us at some point in time to ask for an extension of that process. I think with the work of Councilman Myers and others, as we did to get AMPAC and others back on the roads, and the things that we've done to get BI Chemical, this is a step in the right direction. We feel a lot more confident now as staff that we have a better sense of understanding of where we are, a better sense of understanding of how we calculate the M&T tax. As you can see on the slide now, that's the boundaries around I-95. So what we're asking for right now is council approval for us to amend that. And we would be happy, along with staff on the line, Reggie and Jeremy, to entertain any specific questions you may have related to this item.
Mr. Tabor and Mr. Tennant should be able to speak if they would like.
Thank you, sir.
All right. This is a public hearing on the technology zone. We have a hand up, Mr. Marcus Omar Squires.
Hi, Marcus Omar Squires, 1701 Monticello Street here in Petersburg, Virginia. My question is, will this zone also be applied to the old hospital site off of Sycamore Street where the Veteran Affairs Association was looking at placing a facility? Could this zone also be implemented in that area to possibly bring in other businesses? Thank you.
I have Mr. Tabor for Jeremy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Vice Mayor and members of the City Council. The Technology Zone program is a program that is authorized by the Commonwealth of Virginia, and jurisdictions have the opportunity to establish opportunity zones in geographic areas within their jurisdiction as they see fit. So the short answer is yes. Currently, that property is not within an opportunity zone.
All right, Gary, any other hands?
I do not see any, Mr. Mayor, except Mr. Cuthbert.
All right, this is the public hearing for the Technology Zone. We have Ms. Sarah.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, I'm Sarah Melissa Wodiak, 22 Center Hill Court, Petersburg, Virginia. I think a technology zone is a very important piece of economic development. As someone who lives very close to I-95, I am wondering what are the environmental standards in place to help reduce things like air pollution and mitigate water quality as these development projects take place.
Mayor, I don't have an answer to that. However, if you were to look back at the slide, it is not directly related. It doesn't directly, as of right now, the properties that we're looking at directly abut up to I-95. We're looking at a specific corridor within that circle of the I-95 corridor. As it relates to that specific question, that I don't have any specific answers to that one.
Okay, Gary, any other hand?
And just as a matter of clarity on follow-up to Lionel's response, they're not creating a new technology zone. It has been in existence for some time. They're just cleaning up the ordinance that governs it. This is the same technology zone that has been there since the ordinance was originally adopted in 2003.
Sorry.
A hand up from Miss Sarah again.
Maybe I can just clarify, if we are cleaning this ordinance up, then maybe that's something that should be included or addressed because we are a city that has historically dealt with environmental racism, and we've seen that with the landfill, and we have a chemical company now that might possibly expand. And so I really think that we need to pay attention to that and environmental standards and quality to make sure that we protect our citizens.
If I could step in to address her question, her statement. The technology zone is actually limited to not a lot of those quote unquote high intensity uses that you're pointing out, such as those high pollutants. It's really strictly limited to pharmaceuticals, and pharmaceuticals in the standpoint of those that are done internally, indoors. So that question right there is addressed from the standpoint of the use of this, of the proposed use of the structures within the technology zone.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council, I'd also like to add that every development project that occurs in the city does have to go through a site plan review process. And in that process, there are reviews of the proposals and the development proposals to make sure that they comply with all laws, environmental laws, and other laws of the city, of the state, and of the nation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tabor. All right, Garrett, seeing no other hands, this public hearing is closed. Next, we have questions from members of council. Councilman Cuthbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The topic was raised about extending the technology zone to Southside Regional Medical Center, property that the city owns. What would be the benefits of doing that, and what would be the feasibility of doing that? Would staff address those two questions, please?
Yeah, I know that the city manager has a thought on it too. She may chime in. On the M&T tax, what it does is it allows for organizations like these companies to write off the ability for expanding their upgrading their system, or tax breaks are related to systems and upgrades. One of the things, if it's not specifically in a technology zone, the challenge that you have is for those entities, others that may be paying taxes now that are not within that zone, if you were to extend that, whatever tax resources you are currently getting from those facilities may be abated in a different way, which could have some potential budgetary implications.
Well, but we don't have any tax generating activity going on at the Southside Regional Medical Center site now. Isn't that true, Mr. Lyons?
I would say yes, but however, I would say yes, however, there is some significant resources that the city gets in terms of revenues from the Southside Regional property, as far as I know. And I will look to clarify that for you, that if we were to extend that, I think at one point in time, there was a conversation, it's not only just a technology zone, there's been conversations about entities such as that being for-profit or non-profit. And so those have some potential implications. And I don't know if the manager has any thoughts as it relates to that, if she wants to chime in.
Mr. Cuthbert, could you repeat the first part of that question?
What would be the benefits of extending the technology zone to the Southside Regional Medical Center site?
None for us. The technology zone basically gives them an exemption on new M&T equipment, and anything they purchase, they have a 5-year tax abatement on it. And so the technology zone would give us, if you had it over at the hospital site, it would then it actually would then qualify them to no longer pay taxes on any new M&T that they purchase. If they're doing a major expansion of the hospital to buy a whole bunch of new equipment, that would be then non-exempt. But based on the new setup, we're still, unfortunately, working through a lot of the legalities tied to the Southside Medical Center. Is that what you're talking about, sir?
I'm sorry, I was talking about the former Southside Regional Medical Center site adjacent to Cameron.
Sorry, I apologize.
Okay.
Well, it was my fault. I got the question started and I was ambiguous. So now we know what we're talking about. Now you know what I was intending to ask.
Yeah, Mr. Tabor can explain that a little better because it does not fall within that zone. And I would ask Mr. Tabor to speak to that. And then secondly, sir, I will get you a more concrete and a more defined answer that I will get to you and members of the council of that in writing as well.
Well, maybe the thing to do rather than to prolong this, maybe we can, if you would bring us an answer at our first meeting in January, the questions being, if we were to extend the technology zone to the former Southside Regional Medical Center site there next to Cameron Field, what would be the benefits? And is that feasible?
Absolutely.
And maybe we can leave it at that point for today and move on. But thank you both for being willing to address that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We understand now. Mayor, you're on mute.
Mayor, you're on mute.
All right, Councilman Hill.
Yes, I believe as we move forward with this, and I was going to say it in my comments, but since we're on this particular subject. As a city, with our comprehensive plans, we need to pick out the spots that we can use this technology zone to help, further our economic growth. So I don't want to use the word as cherry picking, but we have those areas in our city that are more industrial-like, then maybe we can use them for those areas as opposed to just just saying, well, as opposed to someone coming to us and then they're asking for the technology zone. I'd like to see something done like in the area, the old where the old hospital is, as we were talking about. And I know with the different equipment and stuff being taxed and stuff like that, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. Where the current hospital is and things like that. But to help get new business development, I think we should really look at that. Instead of being reactive, we can be more proactive in the future, especially when it comes to businesses and things of that nature. And I have something I want to ask as relate to the comprehensive plan when we have our council comments, and I'll save that for later. But that's all I wanted to say. But I'm in favor of it.
All right. Well, look, at this time, I entertain a motion to approve the ordinance amending the city code regarding the I-95 technology zone. Councilman Hill?
So moved.
Councilman Myers?
Second.
All right. Any questions, Vice Mayor Hart, or comment?
No, I thought you already got in the second, so I'm fine with it.
Yes. Okay, great. All right, at this time, Madam Clerk, you call the roll.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hart.
Aye.
Mayor Perm.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
All right. Thank you. And at this time, we'll move on to item 12, public information period. A public information period limited time 30 minutes should be part of order of business at each regular council meeting. Each speaker should be a resident or business owner of the city and shall be limited to 3 minutes. No speaker will be permitted to speak on any item scheduled for consideration of regular docket of the meeting in which the speakers to speak. The order of speakers limited by the 30-minute time period shall be determined as follows. A, first, chronological the notice, persons who have notified the clerk no later than 12 o'clock noon of the day of the meeting. B, second in chronological order of their sign-up, persons who have signed a sign-up sheet placed by the clerk in the rear of the meeting room prior to the meeting removed from the consent agenda. Ms. Jackson, how many people we have signed up to speak today?
We have one person who signed up, Gary Talley.
All right, we'll start off with Mr. Gary Talley, and then everybody else who wants to speak in the Zoom, raise your hand and you will be recognized. Mr. Talley.
Hi, this is Gary Talley, 2323 Fort Rice Street here in Petersburg. Got a couple questions. On the agenda that was sent out, page 19, why does the prepared by and returned to list a Miss Carnes of Norfolk as the preparer? And on the next page, under Commonwealth of Virginia, it has Norfolk, Virginia. Are we just copying and pasting resolutions or things from other cities? On the issue of the entryway improvements, when are we going to improve all of the entryways? Now, I personally use exit 50, Graham Street, and I appreciate the improvements to that road, but the actual entryway, the exit, is just a litter pile most of the time. Can't we do something about that? Maybe post no littering signs or something, but it looks awful. When I have friends come down from Richmond, I send them to the Wagner Road exit and have them come up on Crater Road because it's the prettiest entrance we have. Because most of the time I'm embarrassed to bring them in Graham Road. And the vacant lot downtown, I think it's the corner of Bolingbrook and Adams, and I think bounded on the other side by Bank Street. A lot of parking goes on there. We could actually have more parking if that was leveled and smoothed out. I'm sometimes afraid to bring my car into that lot because there are big chunks of concrete. There are potholes. It's not safe to park there, and people do anyway, as I do myself, if I'm one of the first ones there. If it's crowded, I won't even drive through it because it isn't safe. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Marcus Omar Squires.
Hi, my name is Marcus Omar Squires. I reside at 1701 Monticello Street here in Petersburg, Virginia. My first question for council and staff is what's going on with your interdepartmental communications? I see that there are lots of issues. Over the summer, some siding was stolen off of multiple buildings in Petersburg Legends Park. I did file a police report. I don't work for the city, but I was the one who had to file the police report in regards to that siding being stolen. I then also had to reach out to your risk management department so that the city could file a claim and collect on the loss. I still see that the buildings are not being maintained by the city. There are holes in the roof, windows are busted out, some of the siding has even been pulled off. I have discovered more lamp posts thrown beside these buildings as well in the park. What's the city doing about this? I mean, it's a major issue. Another issue is regarding the tunnels and passageways under the city of Petersburg. Are these tunnels and passageways privately owned? If so, is the owner responsible for maintaining these tunnels to prevent a collapse? If a collapse does occur, is the city liable, or is the owner of the property liable for the possible collapse? Another question I have is regarding the fountain in Old Town. I know Mr. Lionel Lyons said that he was going to restore that fountain, make sure that the city was going to restore that fountain in Old Town. I have not seen the fountain put back up. It doesn't look that great. And then what's going on with the Veterans Affairs Hospital? They were supposed to go in off of Sycamore Street. The city's been pretty quiet about that development. And the city really needs to start looking at what other localities are doing around the United States and even around the world to deal with some of these vacant lots and vacant properties that they're trying to sell off. There are a lot of great frameworks that have already been developed elsewhere outside of Petersburg. Maybe you guys should copy and paste that material instead of stuff from Norfolk. Thank you for your time and consideration. And I look forward to making more videos on all of you. Bye-bye.
Barbara Rudolph.
She's unmuted. I don't know what's going on.
Ms. Barbara, are you there?
I went ahead and remuted her.
All right. Is anybody else out there, Garrett?
Can you repeat your question?
I don't see any other hands up at this point.
Don't see any other hands up?
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
I just wanted to offer a clarification. I typically don't do this, but two public commenters mentioned something on page 19 that referenced the city of Norfolk. That is, in fact, a deed that was prepared by a attorney from Norfolk. So it wasn't a cut and paste. That's who prepared that document. I think they may have misunderstood that document, but Daphne Delphine G. Carnes is an attorney from Norfolk who apparently prepared that quitclaim. So I just want to make that clarification because I heard two speakers comment about it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wynn. All right, Garrett, is Barbara Rudolph in the Zoom? Or
She did not re-raise her hands or ever speak up, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
Well, there we hold.
Just raised her hand.
Yep. Go ahead, Ms. Rudolph. Maybe she's having a technology problem.
Yeah, maybe it's technical difficulties.
We can't hear you, Ms. Rudolph. Ms. Rudolph just texted and said it's on her end, so.
Okay. All right. Anybody else in the chat, Garrett?
Not that I see at this point.
I don't see any more. Okay. Well, anyway, there's public information period is closed. Next, we move on to item 13, business or reports from the mayor or members of city council. Start off with Councilman Cupper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two things. One, I want to add my recognition to the recognition given by others to the phenomenal work that Ms. Dias did in pulling off this Feed the Need program. I don't know how so many people could have been fed in such an efficient way. It really astounded me that it took place with the efficiency that it took place with, and I think a number of people were extremely grateful to the city and found this to be a good use of the COVID money, both for the businesses that prepared the meals and for the people that received the meals. It was really a kind of a double whammy of success by pleasing two constituencies at the same time. And I thank Ms. Dias and her team for making that happen. Also want to thank Mr. Taylor, Richard Taylor, and Mr. Michael Packer for coming out of retirement, both of them, and helping us with the proposed park at the old VEC site. That's going to be a wonderful success, very creative. And I want to tip my hat and tell them thanks for their commitment to the project and their lifelong commitment to Petersburg. Both of them are natives of Petersburg, and they've committed their lives to making Petersburg a better place. And this is just one more example of that commitment. So I thank them as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Wilson Smith.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you all for my well wishes and prayers and delivery of meals and everything that you've done for me while I was attempting to get better with this COVID thing. It's a horrific, quite horrific disease. So I hope you all don't get it. Stay safe and be careful out there. I did want to ask two things. One is, I've made the motion several times before, and I think this year, perhaps recently, you see the need that I have been trying to convey to us. And that is a need for council to have at least a quarterly meeting with the school board as a whole. We need to work together. We need to come together for the good of the whole, which happens to be the children and the families in this city. So I'd like to make a motion that at the beginning of the year, when we come back in January, that we can choose or establish some dates and times for the school board and city council to meet together, effective 2021.
Vice Mayor Hart.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
question.
We've got to follow point of order. We've got to follow our procedures. We can't just make motions and items that are not on an agenda. Why don't we put this on the agenda for consideration in January? I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm saying we got a procedure, we need to follow it. And so let's put this on our agenda for our first meeting in January.
Councilman Wilson Smith.
I agree and rescind the motion, asking that we do put this on the agenda for our first meeting in January. And my second concern is, according to the minutes of the Petersburg School Board, this city has apparently given 20 acres of land to the governor's school and for a soccer field and something else. It's on the corner of Flank and Johnson Road. This is not hearsay. This is within the minutes of the Petersburg Public School System, item number 10. My issue is that this never came before the city council that I'm aware of. And number two, here again, this is 20 acres of prime real estate, 20 acres to be given to the governor's school, not even to Petersburg Public Schools, but to the governor's school. So I'd like more information on this. When did we do this? Why did we do this? When did we discuss it? What's going on with it?
All right, Councilman Wilson, Ms. Benavidez.
So, Councilwoman, we have a request that's come in, but it has not been put on the council agenda, and so I'm not sure why the school board, I don't follow their agenda, unfortunately, would have that as an action item. If we have a request, but we are making sure that it's done properly and it's brought to the city council. It is a former athletic field. If you know where it is, I drove by just to see that has a field there, but and our attorney is also aware, but we will not, no conveyance of land can occur without talking to you all directly. And that is what we would be doing probably in January once we get more details of their request.
I knew that it needed to come to council. I also knew that it had not, but their minutes clearly state that it has been given to the governor's school already. Now, does the city own that property that you're talking about?
I believe it's city-owned property, but that's why we were waiting to get all the details. We, just like with any other request for land, we will bring this to council and I will follow up with the school board chair. Was it in I got a call about it also. I had no idea about this being on the school board's agenda. The superintendent and I have conversations regularly and she has not spoken to me regarding this one way or the other. So I'm not sure how or why that was on their agenda before it comes to the city council, who has the final decision making on whether this happens or not.
And if it is if it is city-owned property and the list that Mr. Lyons sent out, I didn't see it on that list of city-owned property.
No, it is, ma'am. No, it is not on that list as of right now. However, I have been in communication. I've gotten some written communication from Dr. Albon and others that he is prepared and sent to me that I'm preparing to work with the manager and others to get it on a future council agenda in January, which would include the presentation for them to talk with you about the details and for you all to render what action goes from there. no, it is not on that list, but one of the things that we are dealing with, the overall list, there is so much city property that as we get to the disposition issue later in the agenda today, I will be able to speak to some of the things that we are trying to do to get a handle on all of the properties that are in the city and to make sure that you know that that is on that list as a part of that process. So the goal would be, if allowed at the future agenda planning meeting, to bring the information there to the table for us to consider to bring this to you from the governor's school for January, as the manager talked about, with all of the details of what I would have received from them. But I wanted to make sure that what we do also follow what we would perceive to be our disposition process that I will be talking to you about a little later in 16B.
Does anyone know how it got this far? How it got to the point that the school board member could actually attend a school board meeting and state emphatically that he had good news? This is how the minutes read. Good news. The city has agreed to give us the property, to give the governor's school the property, and on the corner of Flank and Johnson Road. How did it get that far?
Wilson Smith, I can speak to this. No one has met with or talked to me other than in passing about an interest that was shared with me. As far as the school board making announcements, they've made a lot of announcements, and when I hear about them, I immediately contact the school to say, maybe you need to get the information. I don't know if the school chair is on this call and can speak to that, but I do believe that in cases and times, many council members say I may introduce or talk to the city manager, but no commitments in writing or otherwise verbal have been made by my office or any member of my team regarding this action. But I will certainly follow up with the superintendent immediately, because this is not the first scenario where I've gotten a message when something's happening from a council member of something being stated that was not correct. They do the best they can to make sure, just like I do with you guys, that the information that is presented and shared is factual, but it is up to each person to say what they feel, and we don't censor them, and as I don't censor you all. But I will make sure that correction is made, and for the public who's listening, we have not made a commitment. Just as anyone asks for things, we go and we work very hard. For example, the school has requested use of some of our space. And so when we do these things, we have these discussions, and as we flush them out, we do bring them to you, the decision makers, if it's a policy decision to discuss.
Thank you. That's all I have today.
All right, thank you. Councilman Myers?
Nothing at this time, sir.
All right, Councilwoman Smith-Lee?
Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I would like to say thank you to Ms. Tyus and her team for doing a great job of supplying meals to the citizens of Petersburg. I received several calls from the citizens thanking and saying how appreciative they were of receiving the meals. Also, I want to state that the call center, I heard that they're doing a great job. I've gotten several calls about them, and they are helpful. Their helpfulness as far as the citizens calling and being able to get to the right people in the city of Petersburg. And I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. That's all.
Thank you. Councilman Hill?
Yes, good afternoon to all. It's good to see our two council persons who have been under the weather, Councilwoman Wilson Smith and Councilman Howard Myers. We thank you for your service, even in times like this. I know you all don't feel too well, but we thank you all for coming on anyway and making that sacrifice for help running the city. So it's good to see you all. You're definitely in our thoughts and our prayers. Again, like to thank Ms. Tyus for her efforts in the feed the program with the COVID money that we had. Thank those 8 restaurants that volunteered and got out those meals, over 9,000 meals. I do want to make an announcement. There's a coat drive that will be held at Tabernacle Baptist Church on tomorrow. I believe the hours are from 9 to 10 or either 9 to 11 for lightly used or new coats that the men of Tabernacle are doing. So if you have any lightly used coats that you can take to 418 Halifax Street, Tabernacle Baptist Church. We're trying to make sure that some of the less fortunate are warm for this year. Something that's kind of been, I guess, how can I put this? Do we have a say on the businesses as council and as citizens of Petersburg, what businesses actually come to our city? And I know the answer is yes, we do, but it seems like to me in the past, give an example that just because a particular business is zoned for a particular area, that it kind of get a stamp of approval if it's not a big time business or something like that. I.e., I counted almost 8 to 9 Family Dollars and Dollar Generals in our city. And I don't mean to cherry pick or pick on any particular type of business, but the problem is I've had my citizens come to me in my ward, and when one of a certain business come up, such as a Family Dollar or Dollar General, they come to me and they say another one, and then when you count the distance between them, they're kind of close together. Now on the south corridor of the city, Crater Road, which is Ward 2 on the left side, if you're going south, there are like 3. And now they're talking about maybe another one coming to the old Rite Aid building. And I'm not sure if that's going to be true. So don't quote me on that. So my problem is that we have a lot of the same businesses popping up on different corners. And many citizens have come to me and other members of council that I know of, because I've spoken to them, and asked us, all we can get is Rite Aids and Family Dollars. And I know there are chains and things of that nature, but I do want us to be careful about bringing the same type of businesses like this. I do realize that we are in a food desert. I do understand that. And I go to the Rite Aids and I go to the Family Dollars, but when they're so close together, and now I'm hearing of 2 or 3 maybe coming in the city, that does not coexist with our comprehensive plan. So I'm not picking on them per se, but I think as a city, working alongside with our planners, working alongside with the economic development and with the Commission of Revenue, that we need to get our hands on this, because it seems like it's spiking all over, but definitely in the city of Petersburg. So that's a concern that I do have for the city of Petersburg. And I don't know if Mr. Williams can speak to that, if it's something that we can, and I'm not trying to stop them, but I believe we have our fair share of those businesses in the city of Petersburg. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I don't mean to offend anyone, but when you go around the city of Petersburg, you see, that's all you see. And we got some great things going on, but we need to try to get, of course, we have always said we want to get some other places, some other stores that we can buy our fruits and vegetables and things of like that. And then they're starting to sell ABC items, alcoholic items. So we just really need to be careful with that. 2 other quick items, and I'll get with Mr. Williams with that privately. But 2 other items I want to address. On Holly Hill Drive in Oakhurst in the neighborhood, we paved that area, and I've said this before, but we need some stop signs put up so it won't be so much speeding there. I've said this before, And I don't want to do a speed study because that causes the city and the citizens a whole lot. But we need to identify some areas on Holly Hill Drive in the neighborhood Oakhurst where we can put some stop signs up, or either some bumper strips or something like that to slow down the people that's coming through Oakhurst area. Along with that, I like to see something done to the Morton Avenue, the park that's in the back. I know we had talked about maybe some type of walking trail, something like that. So I'm looking forward to us looking at that park again and seeing what would be the best use for that area. I know in years past, some over 20 years ago, they took down the basketball courts and things like that. So some type of walking area for the citizens over on this side of the city. And with that being said, that's all I have for now. And I'll give you a call, Mr. Williams, if I'm not too far out my purview about, different businesses coming to the city of Petersburg.
Yes, sir, Councilman. They're actually, you're not the only council member who has reached out on that similar issue. We've already got something underway, so perhaps I can put you in contact with the other council member. All three of us can work together. I think they're planning on bringing something to the full group in the very near future. The issue is you can't address businesses by name. I think what you do is you can address types of businesses through zoning, and that's something that's being looked at, and hopefully it'll be in front of the full body in the near future.
Oh, okay.
And sir, to answer your question up on the Rite Aid, yes, there is a Dollar Tree going in that site, and I think it was more than a month or so ago that I sent to the entire city council what was going into that Rite Aid site, and I will double back and send you that information as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Vice Mayor Hart.
Yes, excuse me. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Glad to see everyone at the meeting. I heard that your last meeting, some folks didn't make it out the way they came in. So I will just appreciate the fact that if you guys sick, just let me know, and I have no issues of staying home, getting an extra hour or two of sleep. Hey, I'm just saying. But glad to see that you all are doing better and up, moving around. So, none of us need this because this is that disease that people are dying from. And unlike Reverend Hill, that's not what I do, and I don't like going to funerals. But outside of that, I will once again like to invite you all to my annual Christmas dinner being held this year at the Masonic Temple on Halifax Street. You can bring something if you like. You can make a donation. We accept food, money, and everything else, so not a problem. Sam, I know you got a big appetite, so you might want to do all three.
Good stuff. Thank you. I just want to.
That's all that I have.
Just thank everybody for commitment and for. Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Hart.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Also, I just want to thank everybody for their commitment and patience of getting through 2020. And we could not have done this without our city administration. So I want to thank our city manager and her team, specifically Mr. Garrett Van Voorhees, who has been here with us to help these meetings go smooth. Because in doing something as tedious as this, we managed to give a good product to our citizens and managed to keep the city going. I also want to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and all of that to all of our city staff and families. And we thank you for your commitment to the city of Petersburg, and also for everyone is going through their special trying times in 2020, but specifically to Vice Mayor John Hart. I mean, you've come a long way, and you have. It's been a trying year, and you still managed to come, fight, and serve, and do a great job of doing that. And I'm happy to see you have the Heart Christmas dinner keep on rolling. It's a great event, and we thank you for putting that on. So I have no other items, so I move to item 14, items removed from the consent agenda. We will start off with item C.
Mayor, Council, for item C, Mr. Robert Floyd is on the phone or on the call. If we could make him active and to address that first issue. Are there any specific questions regarding it, or do they want us to present the item?
All right, Councilman Cupper. Is he there? Item C was the supplemental appropriation of $7 million to the schools for the current fiscal year. Councilman Myers.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
this was about C, but
this is about the item C that you and Councilman Cuthbert both agreed to pull, which was the appropriation of the $7,397,000.
Yeah, I was flipping through my council agenda, Mr. Mayor, but unfortunately, my consideration was to discuss B and not the others that Mr. Cuthbert, although I supported his endeavor, but it's B that I wanted to discuss in 14.
All right.
So therefore, that's why I was asking if we could add that to 14.
That's fine. I got your text message, and I had that added to consideration behind CG and H. But if we want to start with B, we can, which was the purchase and develop 703 Hinton Street.
Yes, sir. And I talked to my colleagues of council. So where we have been supportive of this mechanic shop, which is located on South Street, and they want to extend their, parking facilities block down to Jones and Hinton Street. I can't consider supporting another layer of parking for cars that are disrepaired, and it's particularly adjacent to a community or residential neighborhood. I can't see flattening that land and providing a parking service there for vehicles that are not operable, waiting to be repaired in the center of a residential neighborhood right there at the corner of Jones and Hinton Street. So I'd ask any of the rest of you, if you all would chime into it. If you took a look at the diagram, it is right smack in the middle of Commerce Apartments there in Jones Street, and particularly right behind Washington Columns, which is all in that's in residential area.
I agree with you, sir.
Thank you. And I think Charlie had his hand up, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Councilman Cuthbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I share Councilman Myers' sensitivity to protecting our residential areas from commercial encroachment. We've got a lot of vacant commercial land, and we have many fragile residential areas, and I think the area that Councilman Myers is concerned about could fairly be described as a fragile residential area. So I'm, and keeping in mind that our number one responsibility is to the people of the city of Petersburg, I certainly share Councilman Myers' concern. I'm not quite sure where we go from here. Do we schedule a public hearing at this point, or have we already done so? Or is this a discussion to be had on January the 5th? What is
it is a discussion to be held on January 5th. It was on the consent agenda, but if you want to discuss it on the 5th, or what type of action would you like the administration to take, Councilman Myers?
Well, I'd like to remand it back to the staff. And further, I'm like Mr. Cuthbert at this particular point. I can't even see why they would even send this to us for public hearing. It makes no sense to me. He's going to purchase the property for, I think it was $2,700, I believe. And then you're going to fence it around and put inoperable vehicles there waiting to be serviced right in the smack middle of a residential area. So I can't conceive of why this would even come before City Council for consideration in that particular area. Although it may be some of our areas are B3, but a parking lot with inoperable vehicles waiting to be repaired just makes no sense to me. So I would ask
so at this time
back to staff.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, and I thank you, Mr. Myers. One of the things that as we talk about this moving forward down the process, I'm going to suggest and recommend to the staff that any sale or purchase in any of your wards, that first and foremost, before we get to this process, that staff reach out and work directly with you, the council person for that ward. I think as a part of this whole process, the due diligence was largely done by the staff because of the kind of work that we've seen with the progress of Mr. Espinosa as it relates to that project. But I do take into consideration the concerns that Mr. Myers and Mr. Cuthbert have raised in this process. And so moving forward, one of the things that I would direct staff and ask staff to do, that before any of these items go on the agenda, that we have worked very, very clearly with you, the council person for that ward, to make sure that we've addressed some of your concerns before we get to the agenda.
Okay. All right. And next we'll move on to item C on the item 10C of the consent agenda, which was the appropriation. Councilman Cuthbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me say to begin with that I'm a huge supporter of public education in Petersburg. It's a great mission, and it's also a great responsibility. This information came to us with no explanation to speak of, nothing with any detail to it. For example, we don't know where these funds are coming from. We don't know how these funds would be used. As I have previously expressed pretty emphatically, I'm especially concerned about not using money that has been given to the school board to teach our children to read. Dr. Petrie Martin's comments to us, I believe it was in early October, were that only 38 to 40% of the students in the third grade were reading at grade level as of 2018. which means that 60 to 62% were not reading at grade level in the third grade in 2018. And that's not a career path for a high-paying job. Instead, it's limiting severely the future of our children if we do not teach them to read at grade level by the third grade. Doors begin to close. Options begin to disappear. So my questions are, one, where is this money coming from? Two, what is the proposed use of these funds? Three, how much of this money is likely to be unspent and returned to the city at the end of the current fiscal year? And four, will any of these funds be used to help our third grade students read at the third grade level?
Mayor, can I, council member, if you turn to page 38 of the document.
Right.
Okay, this is the food grant. This is not a city grant or city funds. We just have the responsibility of appropriating their funds. This is what we do with grants. And go back one more page. At the bottom, it talks about it a little bit more. There we go. This is the food service grants. The summary of the appropriation is the use of food reserves. Because of the meals that have been provided, and Robert is actually here who can talk to you a little bit more. It basically states that the accounts which they do for their food service is being amended based on additional grant funding coming in for the feeding program. And so in here, the reason we're appropriating this is not because this is from the city to them. This is actually their grants that they receive from an outside. On page 40, the previously adopted, the food reserves was 39,000. The amended amount now is at 7.3 million to give you a total for the food service, which is on page 40, which is the summary of the ordinance that they're asking you to provide. Basically, the superintendent, whenever they make any changes to their budget, whether it's the funding from the city or the funding from the feds or the state, we still have an obligation to appropriate this. There is additional supporting documents that came from the schools, and it basically talks about, as it said in here, when the budget was originally done, it was at this amount, but the new grant amount has changed from an award standpoint. Mr. Floyd is also on the call if that doesn't answer the question, but this is a food service grant. Mr. Floyd, yes, can you verify that I am correct in this?
You're partially correct. Yes, ma'am. This is what it was is when the original budget was adopted. We've done this every year since I've been here. This will be the third year in a row we've done this. The grants that come from the schools are somewhat of not a guesstimate because that's not right, but it's an estimate based on what they were provided from the state and the federal government. So whenever we adopted their budget back in May or April, we already knew that we would probably have to come forward like we have the last 3 years and probably even prior to that to adjust the monies that are coming from the state and federal government. There is additional documentation. I am not sure why it was not included in the packet, but that's one of the sheets right there that the city manager is showing right now. And then there's another one that breaks it down that shows that there's an additional $39,000 for their school food service fund, and then an additional $7.35 million for their overall grants. 533,000 is going to be local funds from the schools, and then 1.2 from the state, and then 5.5 from the federal government. This sheet right here. So I don't know why this wasn't not in there. It might have answered some of your questions. So I apologize if that was on our department for not submitting that, even though I thought we did. But nevertheless, that explains where these funds are coming from. These aren't necessarily funds that, like the city manager said, that are coming from the city to the schools. Those are the funding sources there. And this, again, has happened, to my knowledge, 3 years since I've been here and probably even prior to our arrival as well. So this is an ongoing yearly thing that happens, kind of like when we get new grants that we reappropriate new balances, we take them before council. It's just a step in the process.
All right. And at this time, can Garrett unmute the superintendent? Dr. Petrie Martin has her hand up. Dr. Peachy Martin, good afternoon. Can you hear us?
Yes, and hopefully you can hear me. My internet.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So good afternoon to everyone. And Mr. Floyd has done a good job of explaining what this is about. So generally, every year, we will send a document saying that we need to amend our budget supplements based primarily on federal funds, but sometimes it includes state funds as well. And this amount has been a little bit more than maybe it has been in the past, because many of the federal grants that we had last year, those monies got shifted to this school year 2021, because we did not complete the previous school year. So I can't really add a whole lot more than what Mr. Floyd said, but primarily these are federal funds.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Peachy Martin.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Mayor,
Councilman Cutler?
I lost connection at a key moment and said I've been scrambling to get back online. This is not the most stable setup, apparently, at least not for me. But at least I was able to land on my feet, kind of. Are the Petersburg schools still teaching virtually? And if so, how is the school system going to use almost $7.4 million that's designated for food services?
Council member, one of the things that I misspoke, it's actually, if you look on the screen, they put an additional document that should have been in your packet to give you the breakdown of where the funding. The food service amount, what they gave us in the beginning was an estimate. And so when we approve their budget, like with many of our grants, we never know what the state and the feds will design. And so this is an adjustment. And if you can look along the way, it'll show you the different areas in which the adjustments were made for the total of $7 million. I can say at the top, and I think if Mr. Floyd can kind of take us through that real quickly, just to make sure that everybody understands what's all in the adjustments that are made to their budget. Mr. Floyd?
Correct. Yes, ma'am. So originally adopted at the beginning, let me pull up the one on my sheet. I have the same document, so I'm tracking as well. So originally the budget was adopted for their for the total amount for $56.8 million. We can just go all the way to the very bottom of the screen, and it'll show what I'm talking about. So the originally adopted budget was for $56.8 million. And that was approved in council, and I believe in March, April, or May. I don't remember the exact date. And like we've done for previous other years, and if not every year that I can recall, those are based on basically preliminary numbers from the state and federal funding source that they're receiving the funds from. So they have a good guide to where to start from. And that's why we're able to confidently bring it to council to get it appropriated. Back in October, mid-October, the schools sent us the information that the state and the feds had actually not only increased some of their new grants for this fiscal year, but Dr. Peachy Martin, thank you for reminding me of this. They also were able to roll forward some of the grants for last fiscal year. So rather than those funds returning back to the funding source that they came from, the federal and state government allows schools, and that's where you see the $7.3 million increase. As far as the food service, that's only an increase of $39,375, which again, that goes back to the estimates that were provided at that time by those funding sources. So that's actually 39,000 of the $7.397 million increase is the food services. So they were blessed with two increases essentially. We do every year a supplemental based on what the state and feds come up with, but then they were also allowed to roll forward the fiscal year 20 numbers as well, which is why this number is significantly larger than it typically is.
Mayor, Mr. Cuthbert has a question.
Councilman Cuthbert.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I ask that we move this forward. I believe this is our first reading. And it will come back before us in January. Is that the case?
Yes.
But at that time, I would ask that city staff see if they can give us answers as to how, what is the proposed use of these funds. What I just heard from Mr. Floyd was that only 39,000 of the increase was attributed to food. And the second question is, can any of these funds be used to help our third graders read at third grade level? That I think has got to be our mantra. I think that's got to be our focus. I think that's got to be our greatest priority. And I hope that city staff can bring to council answers to those questions when we have our second reading on this in January. As I said to begin with, I'm highly supportive of our public education system, but we've got to recognize that there's a problem. We're not going to solve a problem if we don't recognize the problem. I don't like talking about problems, but we've got to recognize we have a problem. And that is our low literacy rate at third grade. So I don't know, Mr. Mayor, whether a motion is necessary, but I would like to see us move forward today with this agenda item, perhaps conclude our discussion of it if you and the rest of members of council think appropriate. And we'll do our second reading in January, but I'm hopeful that staff can bring answers to those questions at that time.
Okay, thanks. And Councilman Cutler, we'll move on to item G, which is the ABC application for Stravers Road, Petersburg, LLC.
Mr. Mayor, before you move on to
Yes.
that, add something to the conversation real quick.
Sure. All right. Sure, Councilman Hill.
Okay, on that note, Councilman Cutler, I agree with you. And I wish that, I kind of wish that Jessica Wilson Smith would have suspended the rules and went on ahead and made her motion. Part of our problem is that it's just like the school board trying to come to the city and trying to figure out where all the dollars and cents are going in the city. This is the school board. That's why you have a school board and you have a city council. I understand. And this is something we've been doing since I've been on council, whereas we're just making sure the money transferred to the right source because it's grant money. And this is federal money, state money. So with that being said, we can cherry pick and nitpick and stuff like that, but they're the school, so they know where the monies go. And I agree with you that our students should be reading on their grade level and I know about the third grade level, reading things of that nature. But until we start meeting with the school board, then we're always going to have these questions because we're going to be outside of the loop. That's just like them trying to come to city council and see how the way we do our business. They don't have any idea. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but even with, they're going to come back with these same numbers for the most part, Councilman Cutler. So until we start meeting with them on a quarterly basis, or at least twice a year, then we're always going to have these questions whenever something comes before them. So I just wanted to add that to it because every time we come to a space with the school board, it seems like we're kind of digging in on them, and I know that's not your way, but we don't understand their numbers because that's what they work with, just like they don't understand our numbers. But if we see that it's in black and white. So until we sit face to face, cross the room for them and ask them, okay, what is this for and what's that for? Then we're always going to be here. And our staff can't answer it to the way that they can answer it. And I wish, Robert, he did an excellent job according to Dr. Petrie Martin, but your device went out at the time. So that's all I have to say on that. I kind of wish that Jessica Wilson Smith would have suspended the rules and went on ahead and made her motion, but it is what it is.
Dr. Petrie Martin had her hand up to answer that question. I don't know if it's still up or not, sir.
What'd you say?
I said Dr. Petrie Martin had her hand up to be able to respond to Mr. Cuthbert's question, so I don't know if it's still up or not.
Yeah, it was up, but Mr. Robert Floyd, he had answered it, and she just pretty much backed what he said. But I did see she came back. But thank you. Well, there she is right there. Mr. Mayor, can you let her in, please?
All right. Gary, can you let in Dr. Peter Martin?
And she can respond.
So good afternoon, and I do apologize that my previous comments were not heard. And I think there are three distinct points that I would like to make here. Number one, no one is denying that we have a reading issue in Petersburg. I mean, the test scores, the last set of test scores, which was year before last, speak for themselves. So no one is sitting here and not addressing those particular needs. So we would be honored to share how we are using these funds to support our students. As a matter of fact, we present to our school board in a public venue quite often, because before you get this request to amend the budget supplements, we have to present to the board how we're going to use those funds. So we have no problem whatsoever in sharing how we are going to use those funds. And just know we take this very, very seriously, and we consider ourselves to be good steward of federal funds, state funds, and local funds. So whenever you would want that level of detail, we can provide that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Peter Martin. Next, if there's any more discussion on that item, I'd like to move on to item H, item G, which was a ABC application for Stravers Row, Petersburg LLC. Councilman Cuthbert.
Mr. Mayor, it would be really helpful if our agendas would tell us whether the ABC application is for on-premises consumption of alcohol or off-premises consumption of alcohol. I cannot tell from the agenda that we've got whether this is on or off. I suspect it's on only, but that makes a huge difference in the way certainly I look at it. And there is reason to think that it is an off-premises component to this. There's something about beer shippers and wine and beer shippers licenses on page 52 of agenda item 10G. And I don't know whether the ABC license that's being applied for is off premises at all. And if it is, whether it's limited to shipping alcohol off premises or not, or whether if this passes, whether someone could go in and buy a 6-pack and walk outside and sit on the curb and drink it. I don't know. So really in the future, it would be really helpful if staff would tell us whether these ABC applications are for on or off premises, and if they are for off premises, whether there are any limitations on that off premises use.
All right, Ms. Benavides.
I think what I get what he's asking for this one. This is, and I think it moves on to 54 and 55 to talk about the site. It's actually a company that's moving their liquor license to the new site, which is Croker Spot, from their current site to their new site. And so that is the restaurant that this is involving on Stravers Road. And I will make sure and work with our city attorney to make sure the information you've requested is included. It talks, unfortunately, it shows it kind of at the back, it's spread out, who the applicant is and the information on them. But we will work with the city attorney to make sure it's noted in that information under attachment 2, and attachment 1 and 2 is where it shows who it is.
Well, is this an ABC off-premises license or not?
I'll ask our city attorney. I know that it's just a restaurant. I don't know the difference personally. Anthony?
The actual notice goes to the chief of police. He's the one that would put the package together, and that will say on it whether it's on or off premises. I don't know if it's included in your package or not, but it says right on the notice, and he gets it via email and usually distributes it to everybody when he receives it. And so if you have the name of the business, you might be able to look in your email and see if he put that in the title, but it'll say on the notice from the ABC Commission what it is.
Can we see, Garrett, do you see Chief Walker, Lieutenant Walker, or either Chief Christian there to be able to respond to that question, to let them in?
So we will from now on make sure that we provide a copy of the notice in this, and it should have been in there. So that's what's missing that would have given that detail, Mr. Cuthbert. Chief Christian, are you there?
Hello.
I don't see Christian.
Mr. Mayor, as the bottom line, we don't know whether this is on premises or off. We suspect it's on only, but we really don't know that.
I have Chief Christian on the line. He has been trying to get in, Mayor, and couldn't get in, so he can respond to it. Chief Christian, can you help with the question?
Yes, relating to whether or not it's ABC on or off premises, those notices are actually going to Captain Walker, who actually goes out and does the assessment. I'm not for certain at this time, but I can get the information as to whether or not we receive that indication ahead of time and let you know.
Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Chief, he didn't have the answer, sir, so he will follow up with Chief, Lieutenant Walker.
Well, I think we're okay. At least I think my concern is could be satisfied when we get that answer, but we have 30 days to object, apparently. Mr. Mayor, are we going to have a call meeting between now and the end of the year?
I'm pretty sure we will have a call meeting before the end of the year, a special call.
When we have that call meeting, would staff give us this information at that time?
Sure.
Great. Well, thank you. And
you want to move on to your next item, Councilman Governor, which was H?
H. I was surprised to see that here we are, December the 8th, approving minutes of a meeting held May 19. Is there a reason for that delay?
After going through all of the minutes and going through all the ordinances and resolutions, being that my department will be taking control of those, I went through and checked all of them, and that was a set of minutes that we did not approve, that did not go on the agenda. I'm not sure why it didn't appear on it, but it was one that, from looking at all the agenda packets, it was not approved. So I stuck it on there to be approved, being that it needs to be. That's the only reason why.
So this was just a kind of a one-off type thing.
Yes, sir.
And that's fine. Well, Mr. Mayor, I think a motion is appropriate to approve item 10H on our agenda, and I so move.
Second.
All right, motion is second from Councilman Hill. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith? Oh, she's muted.
You're muted.
She's working on it.
She's getting it.
She said aye.
I got you. Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Myers?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith-Lee?
Aye.
Councilmember Hill?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hart? Oh, he's unmuted too.
He also said aye.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pern?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion.
So next, go back. We want to add item C after from after consideration, we will add item C, consideration to approve the supplemental appropriation amount of $7,397,181 for Petersburg Public Schools for the current fiscal year, first reading to that consent agenda after discussion.
Yes.
Councilman Hill.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Councilman Myers, second. Councilman Wilson Smith, I see your mouth moving. Did you have a question or you just agreeing? Okay, all right. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not familiar with this process at all. This says first reading. Do we actually approve something or do we just read it and vote to approve at the second reading?
What we did was this is adding it to the consent agenda, adding it back because it was plucked off of the consent agenda earlier for further discussion, and now we're just adding it back after we've had the discussion.
Well, let me
and
ask
then at that first reading.
Let me ask the city attorney what the process is here, because I really don't know. Mr. City Attorney, are we to take any action, or have we, by having this presented to us, we've done all that we need to do? Is a motion needed at this point or not? I'm in the dark.
A motion's not required on a first reading. I think what the mayor's saying is they're just moving it on the agenda, and that's what the motion is. They're not actually taking action on the item. But yes, on a first reading, you don't have to actually take action to move it. To move it forward to the next meeting. I think the mayor's just saying they're putting it where they're putting it on the agenda, and that's the motion he's asking for.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, Councilman Cutler, you okay?
Yes, sir. I'm fine. I think we're ready. I'm ready to vote.
Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hart.
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye. And at this time, we had item B that was approved to be on the consent agenda. I think we need to rescind B to get further discussion. So, Mr. Williams, do we need a roll call to pluck that off? And while the administration gives further consideration to that parking lot.
Yes, I think you need a motion to clear that is being removed from the consent agenda. And you can, as long as it's a member of the prevailing party, and I think it was unanimous, so anybody can make that motion.
It was unanimous, right? All right, Councilman Myers.
So moved.
All right. Councilman Cuthbert.
I second the motion.
All right. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hart.
He said aye.
Okay. Mayor Pern.
Aye.
Motion passed.
All right, thank you all. Next, we'll move on to item 15, unfinished business. A resolution to establish guidelines for the maintenance, review, certification, and distribution of certified ordinances and resolutions adopted by the City Council. Mr. Williams?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This is an item that has been talked about previously with council. It's an effort to memorialize the practice that the city's administration, that being myself and the clerk and others, will engage in with regard to the issuance of certified copies of ordinances and resolutions. One of the things that came up last time this was presented was they wanted me to have an opportunity to speak to the clerk about this, which we have. We went through the resolution itself line by line, and I think we're both comfortable with what the substance of it is, and hopefully it'll memorialize what we do, not just for the current practice and the current people, but also, in years to come, should there be other people occupying these positions, it'll identify the practices that would be in place. Another thing I would mention that came up during this discussion was the fact that there may be some issues we need to resolve with regard to our city code of ordinances. So upon adoption of this, I offered to volunteer to try to take on the arduous task of addressing that. And I'd mentioned to council that in furtherance of that, it may take a year, may take a couple of years to actually do a comprehensive review of the city code of ordinances. But hopefully if we get this resolution in place, that will facilitate us starting that in early 2021. It's not in the resolution, but it's actually what would follow upon adoption of this resolution.
Okay. Any questions from members of the council? Yes, Councilman Cumber.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council adopt the resolution that appears in our packet at pages 171 and 172.
All right, Councilman Myers.
A second.
All right, a second. And by being a resolution, we need to open the floor. All right, Gary, seeing no comment.
Yes, sir.
No public comment on the resolution. All right, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
I do have a question before you do the roll call vote. There was a question I brought up to the city attorney in regards to past ordinances or resolutions that I have not received in my office in the past years. I wanted to know how did we want to handle that situation?
Yeah, and what she's bringing up is very the very reason why this ordinance is this resolution is asked to be put in place, and that is an example. Recently, Planning and Zoning came to me with regard to a question they had on an ordinance that was adopted in 2016. It was an ordinance dealing with a special use permit that had been granted. And one of the first things I said was, well, let's get the ordinance out, take a look at it, and we'll determine what we can do in terms of addressing it through the conditions, whether or not it can be rescinded and what have you. Well, as it turns out, council adopted the ordinance, but no ordinance existed at the time of adoption. In other words, wasn't in the agenda package. Planning didn't have a copy. Nobody has a copy of that ordinance. They reached out to the clerk, and the clerk didn't have one either. So the question that Nikesha posed is, well, how do we address that? And the thing is, I told her, you really can't create a document that doesn't exist. If the document didn't exist when council adopted it, and if the council, and we can't find a copy of it, then the best you can do is provide copies of the minutes and make do with what you have. But going forward, and part of what this will do is ensure that every time council adopts a resolution or an ordinance, you actually have that resolution or ordinance in front of you. It will be in the agenda package. It has to be. Council should never be put in a position where you're adopting something that you haven't seen, and that's what we're trying to avoid from ever happening again.
Okay.
Okay.
You muted, Mr. Mayor.
So does that go for anything like, for instance, special use permits that have conditions on them that were approved? If there's no ordinance to go by, if that situation ever comes up, how am I to handle that, being that they're going to request the ordinance?
Again, if the minutes say that council adopted an ordinance, there needs to be an ordinance. And if there wasn't an ordinance that council adopted, then the best you can do is give copies of the minutes that say this is the action that council took. But you can't recreate 4 or 5 years later what council did 4 or 5 years ago. You can only use the minutes that were taken contemporaneous with the action and what was presented to council at the time they took the action. So again, you can't go back and create documents that didn't exist. And so going forward, we're going to make sure it's done right, that everything that should be in the package is. But, this is something that, back in 2016 and probably there were incidents before that where that occurred.
Yes, probably been the same way for the last 15 years. Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be unlawful for us to manufacture documents that don't currently exist. And in other words, if council adopted an ordinance, if council adopted a resolution, then that document should be in the package that council adopted, so they can have seen what they adopted and approved what was in front of them.
All right. Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, we have a motion to second, and at this time, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Perm.
Aye.
Motion passed.
All right. Thank you. So now we'll roll on to item 16A. Just to give everybody the heads up, City Hall has lost their internet connection. So the city manager and deputy city manager Lyons and Vice Mayor Hart are no longer on until they can get their internet back up at City Hall. So next up is we're moving on to items 16A under new business. Consider 2021 through 25 strategic plan. Is Mr. Robert Floyd?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Once again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Appreciate the opportunity. Can y'all hear me?
Good afternoon. Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Wasn't sure. I didn't sure if I was wasting my breath on that one. As we know, we've started this process a little over a year ago when City Council had their retreat over at Fort Lee, where y'all established your strategic priorities, your vision, things of that nature. And then y'all came to a conclusion and a resolution on what those items were going to be. And then it was moved towards staff to actually develop and further fine tune that strategic plan for the sake of guiding the city moving forward. Over the last 9 months, city staff has done that. We've come to City Council several times now and done presentations. We took feedback from the City Council members. In addition to what we started with, the information that were provided, they then provided follow-up in our subsequent meetings, and those changes have been incorporated as well. It was also, the strategic plan was also put out for resident and community comments. There was a handful of comments that were made. City manager and the team and I went through all of those and made the necessary adjustments, as well as took a lot of their input into consideration as we move forward into next steps of this process. A lot of that was more of the implementation of the plan itself rather than the actual content that was there. So we definitely appreciate all those folks, both on council as well as staff and as well as community partners and residents that actually provided feedback. So what we're doing now is we're bringing this back to essentially formally adopt. And this is our strategic plan, because as we know, it's December 8th. And for a plan that's effective 21 through 25, we'd ideally like it to be approved in 2020 so that we can hit the ground running with Ms. Adams and the city manager and myself and our team to actually get this plan implemented moving forward and then start that process. I have this, the presentation that we've given multiple times. We've tweaked it based on the recommendations and changed some of the language, as well as in the packet itself. The plan is there in detail, the actual document itself. I don't know how y'all would like me to proceed. I can go through slide by slide as I've done in the past, but I will take the direction from City Council on how y'all would like us to do it.
Okay, at this time, Robert, we have the strategic plan in hand, and it's been reviewed. Would you just want to take questions at this time, or what's the?
That works for me, sir. Again, I'm at y'all's mercy. I can go through the presentation, answer questions however you would like.
All right. What's the will of council? Because I know council has seen the strategic plan, and we took this home for review. Would you rather just do questions rather than go through the extensive plan, or what is the will of the body?
Questions from members of council if I'm in order.
Okay. Sure. Councilman Hill?
No, I don't have any. I was just stating that that's what we should do. We've seen it before in question. I think Councilwoman Wilson Smith had her hand up. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Wilson Smith?
Yes, Mr. Floyd talked about the citizens giving their input, which is good. But have the citizens had an opportunity to see the final document, which includes their input, before we adopt it? Have they had any questions?
Councilmember Wilson Smith, I have the packet itself includes that document that it is finalized, and then what we had done is we had created, rather than having questions go to multiple different folks, or going to me directly, or going to the city manager directly, or going to anyone on the team directly, we created an individual email account, basically strategic plan at petersburg-va.org for residents and community members alike and council members alike, if they wanted to as well, to actually provide feedback and questions there. And we've already reached out to those folks that had responded, and there has been nothing else that comes through it. I check it daily. I have my own email pulled up, as well as the strategic plan one, just in case there is further comments or concerns or feedback. And there hasn't been any, to my knowledge, unless something's come in the last 5 minutes this week that relates to the strategic plan, ma'am. So that copy, the finalized copy, was in the packet. I guess is a long way to answer that question.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Councilman Cuthbert there. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Yes, Councilman Hill.
Just like to thank the team, the staff for working on this along with the citizens. It's very extensive. Proud of the work that they put together over this time.
All right, so are you ready to hit the ground running as Mr. Floyd says? Can we entertain a motion to formally adopt the 2021 through 2025 strategic plan?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we adopt the 2021 to 2025 strategic plan.
All right. For motion. Councilor Myers.
Ring the doorbell.
Second.
Second.
All right. All right. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Perm.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
Mayor Perm, thank you.
Passed. Thanks again.
Thank you, and I apologize. I forgot to mute when I yelled at the doorbell. My apologies.
No problem. All right. Thank you. So we'll hit the ground running with the strategic plan. Next, we move on to item C, consideration of approval for Petersburg Law Library appropriation in the amount of $22,000. This is the second reading. All right, Ms. Benavidez.
Just to give you an update, we had the internet to go down to City Hall, so we're all offline, but we're on a computer. I think we skipped 16B.
Yeah, 16B.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, let me see. Okay, 16B. Right. Request to adopt a resolution amending the City of Petersburg disposition guidelines regarding city-owned real estate property. Mr. Lyons.
Mr. Mayor, I hope you can hear me. I have my mask on because I'm in the room.
Yes, I can. Yes, we can.
So what I'm attempting to do here is requesting City Council approval effective immediately of the proposed amendments to the guidelines regarding the disposition of city-owned property. So that's where we are. Garrett, you can move on to the next one. These proposed amendments have moved forward with a collective team effort, which is page 2, Garrett, of the slide presentation, if you have it. It shows that Mr. Reggie Tabor, Ms. Kelly Evco, Jeremy Tennant, Clay Manziel, and Ms. Cynthia Boone in the Economic Development Department have been involved in this process. It is timely that we're having this conversation in light of the previous conversation you had on 715 Harrison Street. One of the things that we've done as a part of this process, if we continue through the slide presentation, is we've taken an opportunity to review the background and current process that hit us back in March of 2018 when the Bob Group was basically saying we needed to do something with all of these city properties. We came back to you in March of 2019 talking about and laying out a process. So a part of this is to offer some amendments to this process that we have. We recognize that this is a document that we've shared with you that's in your packet, as well as the fact that I've shared with many of you council folk individually that reminded us of the fact that this is the first time that we have a full inventory of knowledge of what we have. This clearly is still, sir, and members of the council, this is a document that is in work in progress. One of the things that's going to be very, very critical as we move through this process is the fact that we recognize that as we've already started this process, that city council feedback is going to be very, very critical as we continue to move forward. Garrett, if you don't mind, if you can go ahead on to page number 7. And so as a part of this process, we started in this whole piece of what do we do? What do we do? Because what we are doing is we're getting people who are coming forward. They're looking at trying to secure city properties. And we also, as a part of the mandate that we received back from the Bob Group, and we've come to you back in March of 2019, saying that it's our goal to put these properties back in action and to do all that we can to put them back on the tax rolls. As you can see at the top of this, one of the things that we considered as a part of this process was whether or not we needed to do a moratorium on all of this until we're able to get this right. But we realized that that was going to be something that clearly was not going to work for us as a part of this process. As a part of this whole piece, not only is it a work in progress, we recognize that even as we get feedback from each and every one of you all as a part of this, we recognize, and we may have skipped it, Exhibit A, which probably was on page 6, Garrett. Exhibit A basically shows you what our current policy is. This Exhibit B that you're looking at just now shows you what we are proposing as a part of our policy. In this whole process, we recognize that it is important for us to pull together a list of what we have and to be able to show you all of the work that has been done to get us to where we are. As we move forward, we are coming to you with also, if you were to go now, Garrett, to the next slide, you'll show on page 11. It'll show you that one of the things that we were endeavoring to do in this process is to show you the list of properties that we have. If you were to look at that list of properties right now on page 11, you will see that there are a total of 83 properties that we have on that list. And that list has been subdivided in a different way to show you, quite frankly, those that are commercial, residential in this part of this process. What we're seeing in this piece is that we spent a lot of time and effort trying to work with individuals who are looking to secure properties. Unfortunately, what we found in some of our latest transactions is that we've sold properties, but we were not able to cover our closing costs. So if you look at the top of, at the second paragraph or the top of this, what we're asking you as members of the council is to give us the authority to make sure that we sell no properties for less than $1,000. Why is that the case? We've got a $620 that we know of to date in terms of closing cost. We have properties right now that we sold for value below what the closing cost amount is. And to that tune, the city will have to honor that and pick up those closing costs as we move forward in that process. If we were to go to the next slide, Garrett, if you don't mind, slide number 12. What we are basically saying is the staff has done a tremendous amount of work. We know that there is still a lot of work to do. And what we're going to need each and every one of you to do, we started a conversation yesterday with individuals of council that we've sent this information out to, similar to the question that was asked by Ms. Wilson Smith today in terms of the property up off of Flank Road. When we sent out this list of the properties that we had, what we are trying to do is to assemble all of the city properties that we have right now that is available, one, that which has been sold, as well as those properties that we have on our list that will be available on our website. We know that the principal piece in this process is for us as we move forward, as I said before we bring anything else back to the city council for you all's final recommendation, for our final recommendation. One of the things that we do want to do is to clearly work with the council member in the district to make sure that we have your support and that we've been able to address a number of questions and concerns that you may have there. Garrett, go to the next slide. And I think that just gets us to the so what we're asking for right now, and you all have a variety of information before you in your packet, as well as a subsequent packet that I sent to all of you, laying out all of the amendments to what we've done in the past to what we are proposing to do. Along this, Garrett, if you don't mind, if you can offer opportunity for Mr. Reggie Tabor, Clay Manziel, Ms. Kelly Edco, and Ms. Cynthia Boone to join me, and Reggie Tabor to join me to facilitate any specific questions as it relates to this. You can see right now today that I'm bringing you this disposition process about modifications of the amendments. You see the other items here. These are our next steps to bring this back to you. As I said, and as I close on this whole piece, we were not without challenges as we worked our way through this, but we, for the first time, even though we have received comments and suggestions, we are doing all that we can so that when we bring an item to you or you ask us about an inventory, that with the team that we have now, we feel like we have the best group of resources that we have that we're addressing this issue with you. So what we're asking for is your approval of the amendments immediately. That also would allow us, as a part of the amendments, to not sell any piece of property for anything less than $1,000 to cover our closing costs, and for us to continue to work very, very closely. And I can't say enough about our working relationship with Mr. Williams and helping to guide the staff to get us to where we are today. With that being said, and all the parties involved, we'll be happy to entertain any specific questions you all may have.
All right. Any questions from members of council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
If I'm in order, I'd like to move that we adopt the resolution amending the City of Petersburg disposition of guidelines regarding the city-owned real estate properties.
Right, Councilwoman Smith-Lee.
I second.
All right. It's a resolution. We'll open up the floor for public comment on the resolution. Amending City of Petersburg disposition guidelines. Marcus Omar Squires.
So my name is Marcus Omar Squires. My address is 1701 Monticello Street here in Petersburg, Virginia. So the public in the past has been very vocal about how much the city was selling these properties for. There have even been people on the record who spoke up regarding the fact that the city of Petersburg would be paying the closing costs, and I guess council and staff ignored them. And now we see that the city is in the red and they are essentially having to pay to give away property. I'm glad that you guys have finally woken up and seen the light, but the public has been vocal. We've been trying to tell you that this was an issue. And now you have these millionaires who are getting property for free, basically, and the taxpayers are now left in the red. I hope that you guys will learn from this lesson, and I hope that you guys will not cut your nose off to spite your face in the future. Thank you.
Seeing no other hands, this public comment period is closed. Madam Clerk, please.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
All right, that was 16B. Next, we roll on to item 16C, consideration of approval for Petersburg Law Library appropriation amount of $22,000. Second reading. Petersburg Law Library provides access to legal research and information tools for the local bar and the residents of the city of Petersburg. This is Mr. Wayne Crocker. All right. Good afternoon, Wayne. Gary, can you unmute Wayne?
Should be good.
Hello, Wayne. Can you hear us?
There he is.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mayor Perrin.
Good afternoon.
Members of council. Several years ago, it was moved that the law library, which was in the courthouse, be moved to the public library with the idea that it would provide the citizens and attorneys a wider opportunity to use the collection. And so the law library collection has been at the public library for about 3 years now. And so what we're asking for today is that council approve the amount of money that it costs us to provide the subscriptions and the materials to the public. And that's the amount of $22,000.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilman Hill.
I move that we approve the recommendation. I said approve the recommendation, appropriate the ordinance for the law library in the amount of $22,000.
Okay. With a motion by Councilman Hill. Councilman Cuthbert.
I'll second the motion.
Councilman Cuthbert, second the motion, and being it's an ordinance, we'll open up the floor for public comment on the approval of the appropriation amount of $22,000 for the law library. All right, what's this ABT LLC, Garrett? Can you unmute him?
Audio check. Audio check.
Am I being heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Audio check, yes. Audio's good, thank you. Norma Williams with Array Business and Technology. My question in regards to that is the cost of $22,000. How do we come up with that figure? A lot of things are done online now, and I see law books. And again, how do you come up with that particular figure? Who covers how it's being spent? And how is this money that's being appropriated? Does it go to the library? Who manages it? But my most important question is, how do we come up with that amount? Thank you. And I do apologize for not recognizing the council and the mayor. My apology.
Mayor Perham and members of council.
Yes.
That amount is the actual amount of the subscriptions. We subscribe to legal materials online like LexisNexis, and we provide that to the public, especially now that we're in COVID-19 pandemic. Those materials that subscription is being provided to the public remotely. Normally, it's required that you come into the library to use it, but they've made exceptions during this time. The other materials are law books. We have access to the Code of Virginia. We have the actual printed book, but it can be accessed online as well. But that $22,000 is the actual cost of the materials and the subscriptions. And so
Thank
that
you,
you know,
Mr.
there is a law library committee, which is a group of attorneys that meet periodically to discuss the law library as well.
Okay. Thank you. All right, seeing no hands, Gary, this public comment period is closed. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, members of council? If not, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
I had a question.
Question, Councilman Wilson Smith.
Yes, I apologize. Have we, and are we going to recoup monies that was missing from the law library before now? Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
The law library had a substantial amount of money. I'm supposing prior to it going to the actual library site. And that money was missing. If I can remember correctly, Attorney Dale Pittman had a suit against the city to recoup that money or something. Do we know where it is? Will we ever get it back? Is this just something we're just going to drop?
My first time hearing that.
All right, Ms. Benavidez, you want to weigh in?
Can you hear me? Ooh.
Yes.
Okay. Aware, but what I will do is work with our city attorney. I know there were several investigations that were conducted into money that was missing or not in the place it was supposed to be prior to my arrival via the Robert Bob Group and then the Commonwealth Attorney. But if Attorney Anthony Williams and I can just kind of follow up and get back with you on that. I'm not sure if he's heard about that one, but I know that there are some other areas that were previously investigated.
Yeah, that's the first I've heard of this one. I know that we had, the manager and I had spoke with the Commonwealth's attorney a while back about another incident not related to the law library, but we can certainly look into it and see if there's any documentation that we can update you on.
Okay, I think it was when Robert Bob left, there was a list of things that we were to follow up on. I believe the law library missing money was a part of it. I'm not sure, but I do know that we had a substantial amount of money set aside for the law library, and the money did come up missing or unaccounted for, and that Mr. Pittman had filed the suit. And that had to have been 2015, 2016, maybe. But thank you for looking into it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. If there's any other questions, we have a motion on the floor for the approval of the appropriation of the ordinance of the law library. Looking through, don't see any other hands. So, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
You're on mute.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Perm.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
Next item is item D, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute the commercial lease agreement between Linden Tree and the city of Petersburg for the property located at 20 East Tab Street, Petersburg.
Mayor and council,
And D.
we have a copy of that information. 20 Tab Street is where our community corrections office is located. We have been at this location now, I think at least for 2 years, and this is a lease renewal for this site. As you are aware that we have made significant efforts in consolidating locations and buildings to move more into city on site. For Mr. Lyons, we will continue to look for opportunities to move out of leased property, but at this point in time, the location for this is convenient both to the courts and the other areas that they need to serve. And so this is a lease renewal for us.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Hill.
I move that
Councilman Hill, can you?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I move that we approve the commercial lease agreement between Linden Tree and the city of Petersburg for the property located at 20 East Tab Street in Petersburg, Virginia.
Okay, the motion, Councilman Myers.
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Hey, Dad, I'll call you right back.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Okay.
Aye. Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Perm.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
Okay, next we'll move on to item E, consideration of a resolution of support to authorize the use of city-owned property at 629 North South Street, parcel number 009010005 for right-of-way needed for the ATP Fall Line Trail Phase 1A Smart Scale Project. Right, Mr. Lyons.
Mayor, members of the council, I'm sure you're aware that we went to the dedication of the fall line when we went up from Ashland to Petersburg. You remember, Mayor, when the governor had to rename the fall line?
Yes.
This is part of the
Yes.
Petersburg and Ashland property. This is the way that we are been involved in this process. Mr. Tabor and his team have been doing a great job working with them. So what we are asking for here is for City Council approval, to give the city manager the opportunity to use city-owned property for such.
And this isn't the actual conveyance of the property. This is something that's requested by VDOT to facilitate their receipt of smart scale funding. Once the funding arrives, they'll come back to you with an ordinance of conveyance. This just says that when that comes, you will do it.
And as a part of this whole process, once this is approved, Mr. Tabor and I will follow up and give them the information and they can start to move forward.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Hill.
I'd like to make a motion that we support the use of the citywide property at 629 North Sycamore Street, parcel number 009010005 for right-of-way needed for the ATP Fall Line Trail Phase 1A Smart Scale Project APP 6695.
Mr. Mayor, a point of correction in that it should be 629 North South Street, not Sycamore, South Street.
Did I say Sycamore? I'm sorry.
That's okay, sir.
Okay, South Street. I'm sorry. I'm so used to saying Sycamore because that's where my business is.
And that motion includes adopting the resolution that memorializes that, correct?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion to approve the resolution. Councilman Cuthbert?
I second the motion.
All right, we have a second, and by being a resolution, we'll open it up for the floor. For the use of city-owned property for 629 North South Street for right-of-way needed for the ATP Fall Line Trail Phase 1 Smart Scale. Garrett, any hands in the Zoom?
I do not see any currently, Mayor.
All right, well, this public comment period is closed. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Perm.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
Okay, next we move on to item 16F, a resolution to authorize the city manager to execute First Amendment to sublease agreement for the Petersburg Public Library. Background, the city of Petersburg is currently a part to a facility sublease agreement with the Petersburg Library Foundation for the lease of Petersburg Public Library. The facility sublease agreement includes a substantial lease escalation scheduled to become effective on January 2021.
Council, as we discussed before, and our attorney can talk a little bit more about this. This is the agreement that was signed initially with the construction of it. We were directed and were asked to go back and have some follow-up conversations with the library board and that group to talk about the new terms of the contract. What you have before you is a amended document from the initial lease, and I'll ask our attorney Williams to mention any other details on that.
Yes, it's exactly what council asked for when we had the closed session discussion on this, and that is they're keeping the funding levelized. In other words, the rent that you're currently paying, that's what you're now going to pay for the duration of the contract. And at the end of the lease agreement, the city has the option to acquire the property for $1. So that's what council had hoped to get. Otherwise, there would be a substantial lease escalation commencing January of this year, which would it would actually be 5 times what you're currently paying. So this is a very good deal in terms of the city's lease, as well as the opportunity to purchase and own the property upon completion of the lease term.
Okay. All right. All right, I entertain a motion to approve the resolution for the library sublease.
So moved. Myers.
So moved.
Councilman Hill.
Second.
All right, and by this being a resolution, we'll open up the floor for public comment on the sublease agreement for the Petersburg Public Library. Ms. Barbara Rudolph.
I'm trying again. Can you hear me, Mayor Parham?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Thank you. This is Barb Rudolph, 1675 Mount Vernon Street, and I apologize for the earlier issue. This looks good. I'm looking at it right now, and I looked at it in the agenda package, and I honestly don't remember, so I apologize. But when does this end? What year I know there was like a schedule of many years going out into the future. I didn't know what year it ended. I think it's in there. It's near the end of this package, but I don't have this up right now.
It is. There's a schedule at the end of the package, and that schedule shows the termination. And
yeah, that's what I was looking for, Mr. Williams.
Right.
Okay.
I'm scrolling.
2033. I see it. 2033. Okay. Because going back to what happened? This sounds great, but I'm wondering what happened because I went back to the one that was presented whenever it was last July, and that was where it was going to, as Mr. Williams said, it was going to increase tremendously up to $557,000 per year, beginning in 2021. It looks like going through to 2033. So there's a big difference from now till it's the same number of years, but the amount that is being paid is so much less. What's going to make up the difference? I mean, that's the part that's confusing.
Shall I respond, Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you.
So this original deal was set up as part of a tax incentive deal, and so it was anticipated that at the conclusion of this, there would be a need for the great escalation in the rent in order to cover certain expenses. However, that was not the case, and in reality, the city actually the funding that goes into this lease recycles itself into library operations. And so were they to actually do the drastic increase in the lease amount that the original contract called for, it would simply have an impact on the library operations fund that the city allocates to the library annually as part of its budget process. So either way, it would have ended up being a wash in terms of what the city would have paid, and this, for budgetary purposes for the city, works much better. But the key to this agreement, or the key benefit to this agreement, is the actual conveyance to the city in the city's name at the conclusion of this time period, because that'll be a very valuable asset at the termination of this loan, I believe.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I think so. You're saying this is basically when the $557,000 per year, it escalated to that was embedded in there some kind of operating expense that now the city is budgeting for separately. So
right. Yes, ma'am. It would have been an offset of the city's annual budgetary allocation. And so this works out better for the city in terms of how we budget. But in terms of it impacting the library negatively in any way, it's not an issue. But the big issue is that it's going to be in the name of the city at the end of 2033.
Right, and it's not taking longer. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that information.
All right. Any other hands in the chat, Garrett?
I do not see any, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Seeing none, this public comment period is closed. Next, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Perham.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
All right. Next is item 16G, consideration of a resolution in support of legislative efforts to repeal or revise the judicially created doctrine of qualified immunity, now preventing citizens from holding law enforcement personnel and others accountable for the harm they neglected to cause.
So move.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Yes.
On the resolution, and Next, we'll open up the floor on the resolution on the doctrine of qualified immunity. Barbara Rudolph.
Thank you. Barb Rudolph, 1675 Mount Vernon Street. And thank you for doing this, council and city admin. I appreciate when several meetings ago that Mr. Cuthbert identified that this would be, a bad direction to take because we were being encouraged by somebody else in another part of city government to support the continuation of qualified immunity, when in reality, the way that the direction we need to be going in is what's here. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other hands, public comment period is closed. Next, any comments or questions from members of council before we have a roll call? Councilman Cuthbert.
Mayor, I'm just sorry that I didn't get to make the motion and I didn't get to make the second. Everything happened so fast, but I was delighted that it did. I do want the public to know that this resolution was my idea and I wrote it. So I'll get a little bit of credit. But the mayor was good enough to include it in the agenda packet at my request. But in any event, so be it. I need to raise my hand faster, and I'm ready to vote.
All right. Thank you. Well, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
And Mayor Parham, I'd like to add, I
Cuthbert.
thank all members of council. This is the right thing to do. This is the way to effect change. This gets to the kernel of the levers of government. If we could get the legislature to water down or abolish qualified immunity, we would accomplish so much for the people of Virginia. So I look forward to the response of our delegate and our senator to this. I would add, I sent a copy of this to Senator Morrissey ahead of time, just to make sure I was on the right page. And he responded last Friday, I like it. Good job. So I hope that this helps him do, I hope that our resolution gives him a little bit of ammunition, a little bit more ammunition than he already had, and he's got a plenty, to do the right thing by the citizens of Petersburg and the citizens of Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Cuthbert. All right, next we'll move on to item 17, city manager's agenda. Ms. Benavidez, any items?
No, sir.
All right, next we move on to business of reports from the clerk. Ms. Jackson, any items?
No items.
Next we move on to item 19, business of reports from the city attorney. Mr. Williams, any items?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
All right, and next we move on to item 20, adjournment.
Yeah. So move.
All right. This meeting is adjourned.
All right.
Thank you all.
Later.
Thank you.